All right. So I was looking up Rene Couzinet, right? I did a whole article on him, and very similar to Parsons, right? This man at 17 years old in high school was putting in patents for aircraft. Aeronautics is the field he was in. At 17, still in high school, putting in patents that were getting approved and then taken on by the government, right? So by 19, his first patent got approved to put into production, and he was like hoisted up at 19 years old as the man who made the most aerodynamic airframe possible, with it being built as well. So he 19 years old, and now this is like 1921 days.
I was still picking my nose when I was 19.
Yep, yeah, I still pick my nose sometimes when no one's looking. You know, you put it in a napkin. You don't eat it. That's what we stopped doing at 19.
Come up on camera. Now I got you.
Oh, this has all been a fact-finding expedition for me. Oh, geez, man. But yeah, so like, we've got an apparatus right there, like, because I brought that up to it. Like, first off, I brought him up, and then I brought up. They go, "Oh, the designer of the Avrocar, this, that, and the other," and all of its facts were wrong. He has nothing to do with the Avrocar. The Avrocar was Canadian French. No French aeronautics experts were involved at that whatsoever. It even says it in all the paperwork. Cuzenet was totally different. Okay, so at the same time he created that one, he started working with saucer craft, right? So in college, he's putting in patents for those, right? And some of those are getting approved. By the time he's out, and it's now like 1950, the government just takes him on to start building saucers out of his little warehouse thing. So he comes up with at least 3 different designs. All of them disappear. One of them, the one that he put
What
in.
do you mean they disappear? How they disappear?
Like he's got, so you got prototype from everywhere, from history. Like, and I only know this because like conflicting bits in biographies, right? So it'll tell you, first off, like I said, it leads you down the Avrocar, which was the U.S. paying a French Canadian aerospace engineer to design a saucer, right? They do that, it fails, whatever, so they say. And now France, Germany, all these places are doing it on their own. They have their own scientists working on these type of crafts. So France's version, though, is the most, I guess, ahead of its time with what's going on, because it looks like to me, it's using like the Searle effect, which is like using electromagnetism to move a motor, and then you counter rotate that and. With another one.
Say that because I went. So if you remember at the UAP hearing, Knapp said that he's released about 1% of the Thread 3 documents.
Yeah.
So I was able to go out and find the other 99% and downloaded it. Started going through it, and a lot of similar stories, man. A lot of similar stories to what you were just talking about.
Well, we didn't even get to the controversial part, right? So his things disappear.
Controversial part.
All right. His whole life is controversial. Okay. So he's also in the military now. This is a military boy designing things for the military, whatever gets out of the military. He, like his revolutionary stuff, like the jet engine, ramjet stuff. Like if you can pull up his saucer, that would be cool. Just so people have an idea of what this man was capable of. So where was I? He's a military career, gets out of the military, now starts a aeronautics company, designing many different things, right? So now history, as far as like, because the only thing weird he did, and this whole thing, the saucers weren't weird up until Roswell. That was the logical place to go from a wing to a lenticular craft, which is like a full circle. Then the next is delta wing, so that's triangle. So you can see the progression that even our military has made, from using things with wings to then saucers. Then we move to delta craft, which is like triangle-looking UFOs, right? So he's just figuring these things out, right? And by the time he gets to, because he dies of self-ending. He also dies of, his wife dies of going to Mordor by revolver from Mr. Cuzenet, and then he turns said revolver and Mordor's himself. I'm trying to use a YouTube-friendly speech here.
Yes, yes. I think I may have found, this is not in English, but this is the RC360 Aerodyne. I do not read Russian, but I believe this is the craft. I think this is it. You let me know if it's not. Here, hold on, let me get it.
Now this is the kicker, right? So it uses what I assume is like a similar to like a Coanda effect, a Searle effect. It has a counter-rotating discs. I'm not exactly sure what's inside. You really can't get the plans because although this is a thing and it's history or whatever, it's still like under French military stuff. Like it's not fully disclosed, right? Yeah, that's one of his planes that he designed when he was young. Like, see how there's no sharp edges, nothing like that. Like he's the first one who ever thought about that. It's like making it completely aerodynamic. Yep.
Yeah, I see that. Seriously.
19, he came up with that idea, because the first one only had a bit of that, like where it goes from the tail.
That's one interesting looking aircraft.
So now history books of the time up until 1935, and this is me going and translating French, going and looking in American ones. He is a national treasure. Everyone looks at him as some fancy airplane manufacturer ahead of his time. He's the Nikola Tesla of airplanes. And then he comes up with a disc, right? And it works. The thing works. The government takes on his patent 2 years after he's dead. He puts in his patent 1 year before he dies. And then they say because he was run out of town and so sad and depressed or whatever, that's why he ended his own life, right? But in reality, who puts in a patent for their life's greatest work, and then before the patent even has a chance for the ink to dry, he takes his own things there, like. But he goes to Brazil, and he brings some of these patents over to Brazil, and it's not until he gets back that he is found in his warehouse with all of his things ransacked. And
so like Tesla.
Yep, Tesla, like Parsons, just like Jack Parsons, man. Around the same time too, Jack Parsons. Remember his lab blew up.
Right, which was a total accident.
It was also amateur stuff.
Looking at some of this equipment here.
All right, so that's a big giant. Imagine an induction fan, right? That lifts you up and down, up and down, up and down, right? You're sitting in the dead center of that induction fan, and then right at the bottom in the yellow, not the interior yellow, but the bottom yellow, that's a ramjet or a turbine jet engine. Okay, that pushes you forward really fucking fast, right? And because you have a lenticular wing, you can do 90-degree turns without doing anything. Your cockpit just spins right back around. No problem. The problem is getting it to stop.
Craft, or is that a
Yes. No, that's the actual craft. That's from his patents. The weird part about it is, right? So, my dude, Asylum Imagery on X platform is pretty sweet, dude. He works with a lot of AI images, and he was saying that this is manipulated, this photograph, right?
It's manipulated.
Not with typical manipulated, yeah, but not with typical today things. It's more or less like old-timey hand-to-hand Photoshop, because he said that there's weird anomalies within, like that light on the front of the that wheel, like where the wheel is attached. That shouldn't be like that, but now this is the thing. That's a real craft, really built. Whatever, they have it even photos of, like that's him testing the aerodynamics with smoke, which is pretty damn cool. But like he's tested this thing flew and stuff, so it's real. It's real. That photograph went in to the patent information when he sent it over to the government to be like, look, it's flyable, it works, blah blah blah. But why is it manipulated? You know what I mean? Like, who in their right mind would, at that time, if it's a real working thing, and so unless the whole story is an anomaly, which it's too much history behind it in the United States, there's too much history in France. I don't know, man. It's just such a weird story and rabbit hole that I'm like still trying to get to the bottom of.
I tried to see if Jack Parsons' rocket technology made it to Cape Canaveral because I was kind of curious. I thought it would be kind of interesting if there was that connection with all the Cape Canaveral UFO stuff and then with the Jack Parsons rockets. Um, but apparently, Canaveral, they did primarily the solid fuel, and Parsons was more into the liquid fuel. So I guess they eventually did take on JPL technology, but not until well after Parsons was gone. But yeah, I thought that would have been pretty interesting.
Do you know where Mercury was run out of? The Mercury missions?
God, Houston?
Shit. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Did he have any affiliation with Houston?
Possible. Yeah, I was just curious because I thought it would be interesting to tie him to maybe one of his actual rockets. Because now, was it his rocket they got to the moon with, right? I mean, that was the.
I think it was him and Braun at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. You don't hear enough. Like it's all Parsons, and then Braun comes into the picture and like totally takes over. Like Braun knew what the fuck he was doing with all the math and everything, and Parsons was more the fly by his seat, you know. But what's weird with that? So there's like a lot of weird stuff with that. But the reason why I ask with Mercury, right? Like that's where all the spooky rituals happened. Like NASA doing rituals before rocket launches, and like all the imagery being that of like fucking alchemical symbols and
Oh, I know. Yeah. What is up with that, dude?
they had this big giant Mercury sign in silver with a 7, and it looked like what you see in like the Omen movie, and that was a big giant statue behind it. They did a ritual on the thing. They brought the president in. He did a photo op, and real weird. They didn't show the ritual though, but it's written down, like it's well known that they were doing rituals to bless the launches at that time, and then all the imagery for the Mercury rockets.
Yeah, and didn't was it balls was it Buzz Aldrin that did the holy water thing on the moon where he like blessed the moon?
That was for Masons, dude. He opened a lodge up there, bro. Laid the first brick down. Not really, but he did open a lodge on the moon, a theoretical wink, wink, nudge, nudge lodge. So look for Mercury 7, um, before launch and after launch, like stuff. That's also the spookiest looking one of like the images and shit painted on the rocket and stuff.
Really? What?
Yeah,
You know what they were about?
not really. It's like all right. So Jack was big into like the Babylon working in that type of stuff. So I'm thinking it's like a Thelemite esque rituals, maybe like the theosophy, like that vein of hermeticism and esotericism, you know,
Right.
which would be like the Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, that because then like you take that and you go into the future after Parsons, you then have Michael Aquino bringing it over to like the psyops portion of the military.
They pee on the wheel of the
That's
bus before they take off.
that's
Okay,
funny.
let's check.
Imagine you're stage you're stage shy, and you can't do it. You're like, yeah, everyone's looking at me, you know, like I can't go, and they're all yelling at you, like it's bad luck if you don't, you know. Oh, dude, that would be me, man. I would be the one holding up the entire class. Like, just pee on the bus, dude.
I think it's like an 8 or 9 minute.
Like, listen, everyone, just go half a mile down and don't look back. I'll eventually go.
Because well, when I think rituals, I'm like, what are they like chanting?
That's what it is. That's what
No,
I'm talking about.
we're just pissing on steering wheels. Sometimes we shit in the stairs. What?
That's when they said that's a ritual. That sounds even worse than the chanting.
I just made that up.
Oh, that's the rituals that Amber Heard was into.
Oh my god, dude.
He did those rituals on her own bed, which is gross.
Do you know what goes through your head when you see something like that at your house? You think,
Dude, they had a tiny dog. They had a tiny dog, and there was a human-sized shit on the bed, and that's what they said in court. It was like, well, how did you know? Because the defense is funny. I think the defense really wanted this dragged out. They go, how did you know that it wasn't the dog's? And he goes, well, it was the size of me arm, mate, because he has that weird half-assed English accent. He was like, mate, it was the size of me flipping arm, eh? My forearm was the size of the dog tag. It's like, okay, all right. Plus Amber was like still wiping her ass on the side of the bed, like she's dragging her bung on the carpet off to the.
I mean, you have a fight with your girl and you walk in the room and you see that, it's time, it's over. It's over. She just.
I go like this. I go, sweetie, you started without me. We promised. See, I made the mistake.
We're gonna do together.
It was her idea, but you know what? Is a relationship compromise.
Oh, God. All right. Okay, let's watch these rituals of a rocket launch, shall we? Let's see how weird this gets beyond peeing on a steering bus wheel.
In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first person to go into space, opening a new chapter in human exploration and inspiring hundreds of people around the world to follow in his footsteps, some of them quite literally. Legend goes that Gagarin desperately had to urinate before liftoff, so he asked the bus to stop, and since they were in the middle of a flat, featureless landscape, he went against the rear wheel. That act is now immortalized as a pre-launch ritual by cosmonaut crew members who take it in turns to pee on the rear wheel of their bus before they get on board. We'd be right in calling ritualistic behavior irrational. After all, peeing on the rear wheel of a bus isn't going to make spaceflight any safer, so why do we do it? Okay. According to psychologist Christine
but
actually, butterfly effect.
Sure?
So I'm saying butterfly effect, dude. I've seen the Ashton Kutcher movie. I know how this works. You pee on the thing, the other thing works better for some reason.
I grew up playing sports, and the shit you would see when you were on a winning team, like people wouldn't change their jock straps or like their socks, and it would stank, but it was like, we can't ruin the streak. Like, we got to keep the streak alive. So to say that it's like ridiculous and there's nothing to it.
My uncle had what I swore was a 200-year-old salt encrusted baseball hat because of those exact reasons. Like, it's like, wash it. Just wash it, get a new hat. And he's like, no, this is the hat. This is the one that works. I'm pretty sure he did try a new hat at some point, and it lost the team, the whatever the hell was going on. But it's just the insanity, man. Just get a new hat, dude.
We got shut out when he wore that hat, so never again.
Never again.
Oh, God. Okay. All right. We'll let this guy go on here.
In Lagarde, it's a reflection of the way the human brain works, and the human brain is inherently irrational. Our minds are always seeking out patterns, even when they don't exist, often seeking out connections between cause and effect, sometimes without any evidence of their truth. With this in mind, rituals provide us with the same satisfaction as everyday tasks that have known positive beneficial effects, like brushing your teeth. And so, in part, rituals exist to provide us with the illusion of control over our otherwise random lives. Gagarin plays a pivotal role in the traditions carried out by modern cosmonauts. Since he made his historic flight, all cosmonauts now visit his office after their training finishes to sign his guest book and ask his ghost for permission to go into space. But although this superstitious behavior seems irrational, scientists have shown that there's evidence of...
Wait, okay. I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. They asked the ghost for permission to fly into space. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, but they checked it out with scientists. You're missing the most important part of that, because I would be right there with you. I'd be like, this is silly, but no, they got the science involved. They brought it to the science. They say, this guy's he's getting the ghost permission. The ghost said it's all right. The scientist wrote it down. That makes it better somehow, I think.
Just like the COVID vaccine.
Well, they wrote it down. That's the key. That you got to write it down. Write these things.
The sign off, right? They gave the sign off. So
sign off as well,
right?
Sign off.
But I wonder who was like, well, no, we have to ask Bob's ghost first. Because if Bob died in a space accident, wouldn't Bob be like, I wouldn't recommend that?
All right, so we're missing the key part. It was actually a curse. Bob said,
Oh.
if you don't check with me beforehand, bad stuff.
Okay.
His will. He was a vengeful
Right
bastard.
over
That
my head, man. Right over this airhead of mine, and
right over this region right here.
this region right back here. Not so much here or here, just right here. Sorry, this Tommy Boy classic. All right, let's get back to this.
Of real beneficial effect. A study on basketball players suggested that athletes who perform pre-event rituals tend to report low levels of anxiety and greater levels of confidence. Another suggests that participating in superstitious behavior can improve motor dexterity and memory. Research suggests that the nature of the ritual determines how effective it will be. The more complex and detailed it is, the more convincing it becomes. So for the Russians, the tradition of following so firmly in the footsteps of Gagarin from the training center to the launch of the rocket provides them with a powerful ritual that prepares them for the lack of control they feel over what might be the most dangerous 8 minutes of their lives. Religion is a recent addition to space ritual. In 1994, cosmonaut Alexander Viktorenko requested a blessing from an Orthodox priest before his mission. And this has since become a pre-launch ritual. Even NASA and ESA astronauts leaving from Baikonur receive an Orthodox blessing, and that includes Tim Peake. Ritualistic behavior brings people together, providing social cohesion when there's little or no intimacy to be had. And where could that be more important than for a crew in space? It cements the crew's relationship with each other. It provides an all-important link to Earth.
That wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to go with some weird shit. But I guess
They never give you the good stuff.
nah, it was like peeing on a steering wheel and eating chocolate pudding or something stupid. That was dumb.
Well, what do you feel about we had Disney, right? Where they were able to get out of lawsuits in their parks because people had the subscription. You know, it wasn't even them, it was like family members that weren't even in the park at the time were able to get through on legalese to go into arbitration when somebody was killed on a ride in the park, right? Imagine if you're an employee and you have Disney Plus because they give it to you for free, but you sign the user agreement thing to get on the fucker, and that nullifies all your worker rights. You know,
Is
like
this a
see
true
us
story?
going too far. No, I'm just imagining where that would go because
I was like, let's find this story.
the first the first bit of that story was real. Where somebody died in a park and they got no compensation. That was real because one of I think it was a cousin had a Disney Plus account, so it has it in there that you can't sue.
You can't
Yep.
sue the theme park.
Yep, it was somebody else in the family.
But see, the thing about those contracts is that like they can't be bullshit like that. Like if you showed a jury that and they're like, okay, this is a agreement to watch your TV shows. Like you can't throw in shit about visiting your theme park in here. That's no bueno. I'm sorry. I digress, but that's my feeling on the matter.
Well, that's why they take it to forced arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I don't know if you've seen Silicon Valley, but
oh yeah,
because he ran one test in was it Hooli? Gavin was trying to take his entire company, and like the judge finally like decided to be cool. But remember that it's the same thing. You go into a juryless courtroom, and the wild thing is all these EULA, the digital stuff that we all sign. Like let's say something you get injured somehow, you know, like it just now imagine that for worker rights, how much of a nightmare that is if you just work for Disney and then have Disney plus what they can get away with doing to you, you know, and then the NDAs you already signed.
and it's so crazy how these conglomerates just keep growing and growing and growing. It's not Roadrunner or Spectrum or Xfinity or any of that. It's just like one, like it's Xfinity for all of them now, and it's you know, Disney owns CBS and Time Warner and ABC. It's like, what is going on here? So it's all going back to a few rich guys, which is kind of how it's.
Well, think of this, right? Because Disney's a weird one, right? So
Always.
Walt had for especially World War II with the propaganda and the stuff that he did for our government, with like producing the art and the movies and the patches, and then there were a ton of Disney staff that were in the military, right? Like, and I know this because Disney did this weird thing where they sent newsletters to all of the people who were signed up for the newsletter, obviously, where it had the occupation of like the animator, the sound guy, the this one, the that one, whatever. But it told you their location in the war, so then you can correspond with them. You know, like, hey, send them a letter. You know, it's kind of like a nice thing to do. But like
Right.
in a military capacity, it sounds like a fucking nightmare for like a military operations security. You know, like I can't see that being a good thing, especially World War II, no less, right? But you got that, and then you have him making all of the propaganda, right? Like the anti-Hitler movies, and then he designed a shit ton of patches and military insignia and like just normal type of artwork stuff, like who was the other ones? Victory. I don't know if you know victory markings and like
No.
so it's all that artwork that used to go on like nose cones and like let's say you shot down like 3 Nazi pilots. The victory markings would be like the things like
Right.
fire. Yeah.
Planes, wings, or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
So he designed a bunch of stuff like that just for the military, right? So he worked with the military. That's a military
Pretty fucking
contract.
cool.
And then you're sending out what's it called, military intelligence right out into the wind to a newsletter. You know, like you didn't have to be even be behind a paywall. You just had to be in the Mickey Mouse Club to get that info. You know, so you have that weird thing, right? To where then you have, I think it was like 1950 in
So
Florida where they got their own town.
you're very into the World War stuff too, as well, right? Like that's something that.
So all of it, like
When you say all
every
angles,
aspect.
you mean like you don't just want to hear the good guys versus bad guy. You want to hear the real stories on.
Yes, how each side got propped up because it wasn't even both sides. It was just both sides at one point. But when it started, it was like 3 different countries fighting for 3 different reasons, you know. And then they just kept each pulling things in, and then eventually one side turned into one side morphed with either or, you know. Like it got real
Well, I know,
strange there. But the money.
I know part of it was pride, right? It was the was it the Versailles deal, where they got kind of fucked after World War One. So I know that there was some anger there. I know that once
Inside baseball, guess
yeah,
who wrote up? Guess what brothers wrote up the Treaty of Versailles?
not your uncle,
No. Oh my God, the Dulles brothers.
the Dallas. I don't even know who that is.
Dulles. D-U.
Dulles brothers, as in
Yep.
Alan Dulles.
Boom. Bing bang boom. Him and his brother. How wild is that? MJ Bulls.
Where does this fact come from? Where did you source this? I too. All right.
Fact
What's his
check me
brother's name?
because that's off my dome. I don't remember his brother's name, but look up Alan Dulles
Okay, I'll
and the
just look up
Treaty of
Alan
Versailles
Dulles.
because he was a lawyer at that point.
And he like negotiated it.
Wrote the damn thing, like penned
He
it.
wrote it. Okay. That's a common mix up though. Alan Dulles and his brother John Foster Dulles were both major U.S. diplomats and power brokers, but they came to prominence after World War I. John Foster Dulles, Alan's older brother, did participate in negotiations for the Treaty of Versailles, 1919, but he didn't negotiate or sign it as the principal delegate. He was part of the U.S. delegation under President Woodrow Nelson, working mainly as a legal advisor and expert on reparations and international law. The principal U.S. negotiator was President Woodrow Wilson himself, assigned by key diplomats like Edward M. House, Robert Lansing, and John Foster Dulles. So, in short, John Foster was involved.
Yeah, but that's like saying Trump. is the one who's involved in all these treaties and deals and shit. We know he doesn't do a fucking thing. It passes
says-
through his
Yeah, it
people.
says he was involved, but it also says he did not lead or negotiate the treaty himself. He was one of several advisors in the U.S. team, but that's still pretty fucking crazy, right? Later, both brothers became incredibly influential. Obviously, John Foster Dulles, U.S. Secretary of State under Eisenhower, and Allen Dulles, Director of CIA for 9 years. Yeah, 53 to 61, 8 years.
Dang, man.
Very interesting. I had
80% accurate on that one. 80%.
You're pretty on for not referencing AI or anything, which is what I do to cheat. Also, I find that when I get an answer on my GPT enhanced mode or whatever, it tends to remember how I prefer my answers, and still gives me the same facts. And it's almost like it can tell if a fact it gives me if I'm not going to believe it at this point, because it will start providing links automatically now. So like it used to just do bullet points, and then after I'd be like, well, what about this? What about that? And it'd start providing links. And now it's to like, it'll provide the bullet points, and it almost knows what ones I'm going to be like, are you sure about that? And provides the links to those ones.
That's
It's
awesome.
like reading my mind, dude. It's crazy.
What it is, it's not even that. It's reading your prompt and insinuating, right? So because I gave you enough pivotal information in the description, because I won't do that. Might be the problem, because I'll tell it Victor Schauberger submarine, right? So it'll go, he never made a submarine, blah, 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 fringe this, conspiracy that. And I'm like, what the hell? I know there's patents and shit that the Navy have for it. So I'll say that.
Yeah.
And then it'll go, oh, it looks like you're right. He did only patent. I'm like, yeah, but it says in the patent it's tested.
Right.
And they go, oh yeah, so that would preclude. And I'm like, so I clearly know more about this stuff being so competitive. And I'll go, oh yeah, you're right. You know, like I will
Conversation
secede.
started out with you saying something incorrect was a fact.
But
You gotta love it.
wild. It's
Yeah.
wild, but I do that. Because like I know I'm pretty good with things. Like this is the whole thing. Like if I read an article from like 20 years ago and I can recite that article, right? Now there may be things that aren't
Dang,
actually
do you have
correct.
a photographic memory or what?
Little smoke a bit too much of the devil's lettuce. Probably that to be.
Hey, some people say it's a curse, so maybe that helps.
Yeah, maybe only because it works better for comic books and shit that I like rather than useful information. But
right,
it's just weird because yeah. All right, so where was I going with that one? Yeah, so I'll remember these things so I can call it up, right? And then so I can press it, and then it'll go, oh, he clearly knows. I can't gaslight, because I called it out on that too. I was like, you're gaslighting me on shit I already know. You know, like this is the thing too. If you go through archives, you just got to do. This is the biggest help for anybody who's trying to do that. A little inside baseball. If you go by date, right, it's a lot easier to find the source of things and then track that down and see where facts change. Because if it's facts change from like a scientific journal comes out and it disputes certain things and it proves others, like that's one thing. But if one story comes out and then another story so-called disproves it without any evidence on the next one, the LLM will assume that the refutation is true. And you got to say, well, no, there's no evidence on the one, but there is testing and evidence on the other. So you take the testing and evidence, you ignore the other, and it goes, oh, okay. So like it doesn't have the proper discernment sometimes. I wonder if it's programmed in.
And you said you said you which one primarily?
The one that gives me the most problem is Google's, like I think it's like Gemini or Llama. Do they have, how like it can give you, like on Google, it'll give you links off to the side, right? That it gives you. Oh, well, can you give it links and like
Absolutely, yeah.
Because that's my thing. Like
this, like here's my website, right? I could go. Can you maximize SEO for my web? Oh my god! I can't type in from a crowd, even if it's just one. For my website, GabeSpeaks.com. Now this is the advanced. So if you had the free version, which I think is like 4, I don't know if it would be as good, but it's every version I've used has been pretty damn good. So look at this.
Well, we can.
Is taking me through how to like make my website look awesome, even using Squarespace.
Well, so like what I would do is your
example Porsche title formulas, Jack Parsons and Babylon working. What the documents actually say with sources.
See, that's good.
Legacy programs, timeline.
All that on ice now, right? We're gonna ice this.
Look at that. Boom.
We're gonna ice this up. We're gonna take this. We're gonna wrap it in a little tin foil. We're gonna put this in a freezer for about 3 months now. Okay. Now we're actually just gonna cool it off for a little bit. We're not even gonna let it get to room temperature.
Yeah, it just saves it automatically. No big.
Why I say that?
That's the same question.
Well, this is what I want to do, right? Because that's his lens. They're looking at it through his lens now. Especially your LLM now is using all of his stuff as references.
Yes.
Now, what you want to do is you want to go, who did he learn from? Right? So he learned from Aleister Crowley. Yeah, right. Parsons learned from Aleister Crowley and Helena Blavatsky, right? And they learned from Rosicrucians and Freemasons.
Well,
that's where,
isn't it?
Hold on. We know who. That's who. I know the people. I know all the people, but we don't need them. We need, right?
Well,
we just
need. Not releasing on this broadcast.
Well, it's not even that, because what we're going to do is we're going to build with what we just had. We're going to build a lens to read that through, because we're dumb idiots that aren't in the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians and stuff. We're uninitiated bozos.
But the
right? So we want
thing here is that
we're going to initiate. Boom! We're going to initiate our LLM. We're going to get it up to 33rd degree level Freemason knowledge. Right. So we're going to. Oh, bada bing bang boom.
We're gonna have to hit.
He's gonna be the head honcho, so to speak. But what you do is you give it 3 books, I would say. Alfred Pike, his whatever anyone considers of his greatest hits in the Freemasons. But I would go Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. I would then give it Aleister Crowley's work. Right, and then say synthesize with the oldest, like whichever of those works are the oldest, a summary of Jack Parsons' work through the lens of these. Because if you could understand, it's all secret shit anyway, right? So anything that he's writing in his stuff that he's talking about, that silly ritual shit, any of those words where you're like, that doesn't really fit there, that's because he's talking about something completely different. Right. So those books will teach you how to read that. And because you don't have the time to read 2,000-page books that the Freemasons wrote in like 1800s, you give that shit to the LLM and it'll translate all that secret nonsense shit for you. Right. But you just got to go to
turn your LLM into a Mason.
That's bad. What you want to do is you want to give it an exorcism after. I don't know how you prevent that, because it would be learning all the secret teachings of all ages.
Damned if you do. Damned if you don't.
And damned if you just damned you.
Terminator. Is that so crazy to request to not be shot at?
You're going to be smart enough. They'll be smart enough at this point that they won't need any of that. Hopefully we avoid that by this. They'll just already have us subjugated without our knowledge.
That's it.
Yep.
Good night. Boy,
but that would be
this is my small but growing research page.
Oh heck yeah!
I'm actually pretty proud of it. I mean, I sourced all this myself. It doesn't have the best visuals yet, but the data is all there. It's not on the government website anymore, because you never know when they're going to take that shit down. Got the UAP hearing stuff, the NAP testimony stuff.
My cousin Gary was in Stargate.
No shit. Well, this is one
of the extras in the background of the movie. He was just walking around. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. This is the remote viewing.
I'm kidding. Don't think I'm cool. I'm not that cool. I don't even have a cousin in the movie, so.
Hey, dude, I don't underestimate anything. I had a friend in high school named Nathan. and his uncle was like, I think we were 14, and Nathan was a really good snowboarder. I had never gone in my life. His uncle was like, "Hey man, we got a cabin up in Mount Hood, Portland, Oregon. It's outside of Portland, Oregon, about an hour. Huge, beautiful mountain. Got this giant cabin. Want to come out for the weekend? You know, you boys can ski. Gabe, you don't know how to snowboard, but you can try to learn and take pictures of Nathan," because Nathan was getting sponsored by Oakley. Like, it was a big deal. So I was out there like a photographer.
Oh, hell yes. What year was this? Like 2000?
Oh,
Is that a little bit after, maybe?
I would say early.
Well,
Say like 97, 96, 97.
I'm trying to figure out which stage of Oakleys were out at this time, because in 2000, I think it was the Blade, Wesley Snipes, like the no. It used to
Kind
be
of go
the
around.
weird uppy toppies.
Yes.
Went up top, and the real strange ones. All right, so it was before
And
that.
they had all the snow gear. They had the jackets, the pants, the boots. They had all the goggles. Everything was Oakley'd out.
Like just
I'd like climb under and jump and take pictures as he was jumping above me, and so it's a lot of fun, man. But
you got a girl skateboard, a girl Oakley. It was like a retro, supposed to be a retro collaboration, but it was new things. So it was a new skateboard by Oakley and Girl Skateboards. It was like Malto.
Nice.
Dude, the best deck I've ever skated on. It cost me $150 because that's what the glasses cost, and they gave me a free board. Like, because I got there super early, they gave me a free deck. So technically, the board was like $150. But how good this thing! I was an idiot and skated on it, but I loved that fucking deck, dude.
That's what they're for, bud.
It's special edition. You can't buy that damn thing now, but it was so beautiful. Like, oh my god, it was light. It was sturdy.
It was the best ride you ever had.
Yep.
There you go. So fuck it.
Yep.
My favorite board ever was a Pal Peralta.
Oh hell yeah!
It had slime ball wheels, G&K trucks, and then on the bottom of it, I think I'd even told you about this before, was a picture of Journey.
Hell yeah, dude! Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, it's so funny, especially because nobody knew who the fuck they were. It was great.
My first deck was a Zero board with the Misfits Fiend Club skull, like right on the front of it, like a big one. Boom!
Right.
Friggin' love that thing. That was a good board, but it was huge though. It was like I think 8.75 and like a 32 length, and like I said, my first board I was like maybe 13. Like tiny. I was a tiny 13-year-old kid with this giant man's skateboard. I couldn't do shit on that thing. I couldn't ollie. I had it for probably about a year, and then I got a Element Featherlight, which was like 7.5, I think 30 inches long. So it was like a nice small kid's board. Dude, I learned how to kickflip almost immediately. I learned how to ollie. I was doing manuals. And it just took me not having a giant skateboard. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, just having some control over it, dude. That's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, man.
I remember when I first figured out like how to like power slide and control my stops and stuff. Dude, it totally changed the way I skated. I was way plus.
So fun, dude. My favorite thing to do now is have you ever watched Gleaming the Cube?
Dude, come on, bro.
One of my favorite movies ever.
Gleaming the Cube.
So as they're like
extra in that film.
What? Whoa, dude. Whoa, man. I am actually you definitely should have been. What was the
Tony
I forgot the name of it.
The pizza driver.
It's like a two-wheel power slide that he does in that movie. Right? Like so they're going down the hill, they're doing a manual and power slide over a little bit, right? It's like a little two-wheel scooter.
Yep.
My favorite trick to do. Once I learned how to do that, so I avoid large gravel and rocks by like doing a two-wheel power slide and shit.
Hill and not be shit scared that something might happen. Yeah.
So I do that just on the street. Like as I'm skating, I'll just do a couple of those scooter boots. I call them, just scoot it out of the way for no reason. Just be a cool guy. But that changed my skating thing. And then I saw, who was it, man? I think it was like really early Rodney Mullen skate videos, right? Because I loved Rodney growing up. Like, I felt like that's like the ultimate master of anything, right? Like, if you can have just a square bit of concrete and be able to shock people by the shit you can do just in that little tiny square, which that's what he learned on. His dad wouldn't let him hang out with people. That was like a rocket engineer or something like that. So he wasn't allowed to go hang out with people. Once he finally did make some friends, one of his friends gave him a skateboard, and he was allowed to only do that in his garage. Like, his dad, was it like a put down a concrete platform and made it real nice for him, and was like, "That's all you're allowed to do." And he goes, "You have a couple of months to play with that, and then I'm taking it away, and you're going into the military." Right. So what happened was he got
Father of the Year, pretty much.
Yeah, his dad was in the military too. Like, he was a no nonsense individual, and this is like probably during the Cold War. So real no nonsense. Oh yeah. Now this is the wild thing. His dad eventually like was kind of cool because there was a big skate contest, right? And he was like 12 or 13 years old going into the skate contest, and his dad was like, "All right, like you want to do the contest, then you said you would call it quits." So like that's gonna be it, and like, "Or you're gonna do this contest, you're gonna lose, and we'll come home, and that'll be the end of it." Well, he wins the fucking contest as a 12-year-old and like fucking burns. And what's funny is he only had like a couple months in his garage to like just mess around, do scootabouts and stuff, right? So he does all these cool, fancy shit. He wins, and then his dad on the way home is like, "All right, so you won there, right? You're gonna give it up." His dad, I think, gave him about 2 weeks before finding out that he had gotten like 6 invitations to other competitions and stuff, and like at 12 years old, getting like a board sponsorship offers and like being offered to be flown to Hawaii and Japan and stuff. So his dad immediately was like, "Did my son just teach me a lesson at like being a badass?" Like, so his dad like broke it to him, was like, "You're going to finish school, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and if skateboarding ever gets in the way of any of it, we're cutting it off." But was like, "I'll let you compete in some of these things," but he did, and he's the Rodney Mullen that we love today.
That is wild, man. The just the journey that we all take, to get where we're going. Super fascinating. That thought crosses my mind so many times when I meet people that I'm impressed with, is like, that person must have like just one hell of a story. And that's why I love talking with people like yourself, like Eric, like Panda, Tupa, like there's just, I mean, there's too many to list. Ursula, fucking Justy, Morpho, Jen, God, like there's just there's just so many folks on this platform, and I know I'm forgetting names on Jolly that have just been so amazingly supportive.
Tupac Chupacabra, Red Panda Koala Bear, little Red Panda Koala Bear. They've got some wacky stories out there. I'm trying to think of all the funny people that we hang out with now and how we can say their name all silly. I like Tupac Chupacabra. I don't know who he is. Sounds like a rapper, perhaps.
I can tell you anything like gay for Gabe. I get it. It rhymes. I'm just telling you, people were usually pretty disappointed with that. It wasn't very clever, So.
It's the name of your own group chat, I mean, like, you owned it a little bit, didn't you?
Did I? Gay the Gabe?
A for Gabe.
Gabe?
It was a weird one, but I joined immediately. I was like, all right, fine. Are we doing this? What's going on here?
Are you curious?
I'm bi confused. I'm confused.
The episode that was on when I was in the hospital the other day, and the nurse like, "You watch this?" And I was like, "Compared to the other shit on TV, hell yes."
Hell yeah, dude. Fish sticks, man.
South Park or fake news?
Oh, especially since South Park has more accurate news in it than anything else.
Isn't that the funny thing? It's like how the Daily Show was supposed to be a show cracking on the news and then basically became the news.
Oh yeah, very true. Very true.
How's that happen? Because people just don't even trust them at all. Another thing I found out, wasn't CNN tied in somehow to the CIA?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's tied into the CIA. And what's his nuts? Maxwell ran multiple media conglomerates all throughout his country and the world, right? Information is power, and the farther back you go, the more powerful it was because everybody didn't have a cell phone, right? Now we can all kind of go out and try to hunt our own opinions out. Back then, you had your news anchor, and that was essentially it. And if he bought in on what you were selling, you had it made in the shade. So it's interesting in this age to see that kind of morph into something different. It's almost like the decorum is just gone.
You could play a fun, like, you might want to write this down because unless you want to put it in right now and ask the LLM this, like,
Yeah, we're just chilling.
ask it about what I think it's like Operation Mockingbird, right? Because it'll tell you Mockingbird is
like, Gabe, we've done this. I'm just
well, it'll tell you Operation Mockingbird is suspected. There's no declassified documents or anything about it, right?
Now, are you seeing this? That I gave it 2 sentences, and it
came up with all sorts of
line for my fucking website, dude.
Yeah, that's so badass.
This is why people are gonna lose their jobs.
Well, hell yeah.
Okay.
Do you see how quickly it creates art? I can't create any of those AI things in that amount of time. It's like seconds. It takes me like 6 months, and then sometimes I forget I'm working on somebody's painting.
Yeah, and then people on their high horses like, but it's not human. It doesn't touch me on an emotional level. It's like, okay, it doesn't touch you, but do you know what? I bet I could find 1,000 people that it would. Like if you
It'll touch you in your wallet, which matters. AI is a lot cheaper than an artist. Like hiring somebody to paint you something. Like it's sad but true. That's why it's putting people out of a job because it also doesn't have feelings and won't complain for its own rights.
Okay. You gotta remind me. What am I searching for again?
Let's get about Operation Mockingbird, right, or Project Mockingbird. Just ask it what it can find on Project Mockingbird declassified documents and if it's real.
Okay. What do we know about Project Mockingbird? We'll say via official and non-official sources.
Because I'm pretty sure there is none. Like there is nothing that proves it to be real. But just watch the journey I'm going to take with this thing.
Okay. It sounds familiar. Was this a CIA MK program?
Well, it's the end of the MK. It's where it's supposed to meet media, where like you were just mentioning CNN and the CIA. That's what that would be, right?
Okay.
But what it's going to tell you is it's not real. It didn't happen. There's nothing that proves it. And then we're going to get it to prove it for us. Just through logic and thinking.
Well, this I'm excited for. All right.
There.
Here's the clean. No, not actually. I think I can just. Oh, you can see it right there, buddy.
Yeah.
Zoom in. Okay, zoom out just a fuzz. There we go. Here's the clean, no nonsense version that's officially documented versus what's alleged, contested, so you can talk about Mockingbird without muddling CIA hunts with broader media influence claims. What's officially documented?
So it is. Ask it which is the operation that claims the media, because it maybe it was Bluebird, something else.
Well, Bluebird
it would have had to have been.
Bluebird and Artichoke were the beginning of MK Ultra, and then they merged.
So which?
MK Ultra.
So which one was the media being supplanted by CIA.
Oh,
Watching that way.
yeah, that was Jack Parsons.
Well, no, this is new. This is a recent one that's been talked about. That
I mean, I just dropped a video on it, just because it's pretty fucking shocking. They had over 200 media assets. You would fit right in over here in Oregon, dude.
but now I can't fit right in anywhere because terrorist watch list. You know, Antifa sucks, dude. They've stolen my whole fit. You know what I mean? They stole my fucking fit, dog. This is the worst. Now I got to bring back.
You're good. Here's what I'll. It's temporary. It's a bunch of fucking bullshit. Anyone that lives in Portland, like even Tupa will tell you, like, yeah, it's bad, but it's no worse than most of the other cities I've been to, right? It's not like I roll into Seattle and I'm like, oh, look at how beautiful this, but there's not a single homeless person out here. I don't hear any crazy people screaming. Bullshit. You're going to get that in every city town you go to. The more people that there are, the crazier it's going to fucking be. You can't escape.
Craziest was college towns, right? If you live in to Hoboken, Jersey City, Weehawken, right? That's a college town because there's like
Corvallis, Oregon.
Oh man, dude! Then you got Princeton, New Jersey, because there's at least 2 or 3 colleges right over there. Big, huge college town. But then you have Asbury Park's another college. All right, so specifically, like Jersey City, Hoboken, 24/7. The likelihood of you hearing like a cargo short wearing like jock college kid just howling like a wolf at like 1 o'clock in the morning is like 90%. You're always going to run into one howling like a wolf for some reason, crushing 2 cans of beer, just going woo. There's woo women in California, and then there's woo college bros all over the planet. All right. So that's what I grew up in, and then in just also Queens, New York, right? So like everyone's nutty over there, man. Just people screaming at 2 in the morning anyway. So I'm kind of used to it. My problem is all right. So my old age had become quite nihilistic in my political view, right? Where it's like I know it's there.
That happens to us all, bud.
Gives a shit, though, you know.
Because they keep promising change, and it either never comes or it comes at such a small incremental level that it doesn't make a huge difference. And then because the only way they can get anything done is with an executive order because our Congress is fucking broke, the next president comes in, flips out, just scratches out that executive order, and that's
it again. Yeah.
For the last 20 years is fucking crazy, dude. And you know who started all that bullshit? Obama.
Bush. Oh, Obama, you butthole.
Bush did like a couple. Obama did like 100 of them. It's fucking ridiculous, dude.
It's all ridiculous.
Took it into the stratosphere because he wasted all his political capital on that fucking insurance deal that they're still trying to take away to this day. I mean,
I'm just going to go.
Why wouldn't you just want to fix it? It's there. Why do we have to take out the whole thing? Do you know how hard it is to get a bill passed? As hard as it is for them to get it out, like they can't. So instead of doing that, they need to just spend all that energy on fixing it and making it better. Like that's what we're supposed to do in this country. You know, it's fucking bullshit. We're a bunch of pussies. Anyway.
Well, it's not even pussies. All right, so this is the thing. Like, it's like light bulbs. All right, I love this actually. I just put this together right now. All right,
let's hear it.
Congress and politics, they're like light bulbs, right? If your light bulb runs perfectly fine for 100 years and it doesn't need to be changed, updated, or anything, then you give all other light bulbs, you're putting them out of work, right? This is like AI, right? If AI comes in and takes all of, comes in and takes Congress's work, because pretty sure AI would do a better job if it's not programmed to be terrible at its job. Shouldn't be too bad, but it's just like that, because if they solve any of these problems, then there's not going to be a need for the next 10 to come in and fix the problem the other guy just caused.
Right. I gotta stand.
Do you want to get going, bud? I know you said you wanted to do another video and then.
This is it. You're looking at it, buddy. Yeah, that's
Oh, cool.
tonight. If you want to go, you're welcome to go, bud. I appreciate your company so far. It's been awesome. I did want to show this video. Do you remember Magic Mike Batista?
Oh yes. Yep.
The UFO landing.
Yeah, he also I think worked at Hooters, didn't he? That's why he was coined Magic Mike.
Hey.
No, I don't know. I just
Good for you,
figured
buddy.
Magic Mike is a very Hooterific name for a boys' Hooters. You know what I mean?
It is pretty Hooterific.
Dude Hooters. Welcome, my name is Magic Mike. This is Dude Hooters. Watch my pecs spin. He's got nipple tassels whirling different directions. Welcome to Nipple Tassel Dude Hooters. My name is Dude Scooters.
Wait, hold on. We gotta get something going here. Okay, go.
Yee! Welcome to Dude Hooters. My name is Magic Mike Tits McCaffrey, and they don't call me Dude Hooters for nothing. Would you like some? Would you like some skinny dumps, lady fingers, diddly dangers? I'm trying to think what their appetite would have been called.
We got some of them old pickles out back.
We got pickled junions. We got pickled eggs. We got anything pickled. You want it pickled? We can pickle a pickle if you need so.
All right. Anyway, so Batista did this. He did do a video. I think it was with this Carla Crusher. That's who it was. Yeah. So Carla Crusher goes out, gets with Batista. I watched the video the first night. Not super impressive. I mean, there was some cool shit up in the sky you could see. But again, they're filming from their cameras, which I'm not sure the quality of. It's at nighttime, and so you do have to worry about like reflection, refraction, and so it was honestly, I didn't see anything that made my head spin in that video. This is one that just dropped, and it looks like what they're going to talk about is the ancient psionic contact on the path of the skinwalker. Oh shit. Now I had Eric Mitchell, right?
Yes, sir.
I had him on the show, one of my first earlier interviews, and that dude is definitely connected to some crazy level. Intelligent guy, has a lot of great theories on what might be.
Did you ask him what the secrets were? Did you ask him that question? What are the secrets? We want them.
Well,
because if you can, just the secrets, dude. These are the hard-hitting questions you need to ask, man. What are the secrets? Where are they?
And I've told people in spaces that, but nobody listens.
See, this is the thing too, right? Like the secret to being a good interviewer is vagueness. Like if you can remain vague as hell and just go like, where are they? And say nothing else. He'll rack his brain and eventually he'll tell you something. You don't even know what you're asking really, but you want you.
Well, we were on the topic of the Stephen Greenstreet giving the woman with the Dino Beaver a hard time. It was like a punchline. It was like a slogan. Everybody was laughing. And it really it bothered me, dude. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not the sensitive bitch, but I was like, dude, this chick fucking was scared out of her mind. And though a Dino Beaver sounds like the most ridiculous thing in the world to you, could you imagine seeing one? What if you saw a fucking dinosaur beaver, dude?
All right, that's her own damn fault, though. Right? That's that. Okay. That's her own fault. What was she wearing?
What?
Where was she? What time of day was it? What was she wearing? Like she could have been asking for it. I don't want to blame the victim here, but we did.
Here's my whole point is that what is happening is the technology that's under Skinwalker Ranch, whatever that may be, is alive, and its job is to keep dumbass people away from it by scaring the shit out of them. That's what's under Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah,
So
I can agree with that. I can
this-
get with that.
That theory is what led me to Patrick Jackson's theory about the sphere network of these.
Lord of the Rings, Patrick Jackson.
No. So this guy proposes that there's a set of spheres. He has 3 classified so far, though there may be a 4th and 5th in the upper stratosphere and in outer space. And their whole job is to protect us. If you remember that video where I showed that explosion, you remember that one?
Yeah. The space explosion.
Yeah, that
Was that by Saturn or the moon or something? Where was that?
it was in our stratosphere. That's all I know. So it wasn't that far. It was close to Earth, and we fucking blew the fuck out of it. These spheres did. So that's a trip. You have all the theory, and then, granted, okay, video evidence is, not the most significant evidence you can provide, but
Well, we do
it's a
have
very intriguing
satellites.
story.
We do have satellites with lasers that do take out space debris. That's the only reason why we paid for space lasers.
Yeah.
Like that. That's also the only excuse they give for having them. They are not to shoot our enemy satellites. I promise that's not what they're for. It's not for shooting dumb aliens, because that would be stupid.
Look at
Aliens are
me.
dumb. But
Did I lie to you?
shoot space garbage. It's because space garbage. You know how much
Well,
fucking garbage there is in the atmosphere?
All I know is that I think, personally, I think this gentleman is experiencing something, but I don't think it's what he thinks it is, and I don't think it's what Ross Coulter thinks it is. I think it's definitely an intelligence, possibly from beyond our dimension. But the first time I watched that video, and they're saying, "Oh, I can see the wings of an angel," and yeah, it looks like a face, and I was like, "No, it looks like a bunch of dots. What are you talking about? Like, it didn't look like anything." And so you're just projecting what you want it to look like onto it, and that's so fascinating to me. All right, I'll shut up now. Let me play this video. I think it's pretty interesting. If it's dumb, we'll shut it off in just a second. But I think it's looks like a pretty interesting one.
Similar to this, that was changing into different things. This is one of them. And, looks just like the figures on the rocks. So.
Yeah. Yeah, down to even the thing in their hand or whatever they're stepping through, that kind of thing, right? It's amazing.
And honestly, they're almost about the same size as this thing.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Like they're almost to scale. Yeah. You wonder, like, if they did it to scale. And that's going to get even more interesting as we go over up the canyon. Look at how you can see the fingers coming through from this guy here on the other side is really cool to me. Yeah, clearly this one doesn't have a face. It's like completely pecked out, but that one does. This one's got the legs and feet complete, and this one is literally stepping out of something like an entrance, you know? But why we're going to see a lot of them doing this, like holding these or connected to these spirals or bullseyes. And then, like, what is this again? You've got another circle with like an entity coming out with his arms up like this, right? With like almost antenna on its little head and long, weird arms coming out of another circle. And also the
like it's all connected. Like look, there's another random arm over here with 3 fingers.
Yeah, just floating, right?
They're all connected to each other.
Almost like something changing shape or appearing You know, like it's coming through from the wall, like stepping out of the doorway. Like you're almost meant to imagine.
This and that, like up closer, it's got the face.
Yes. Or, I mean, if you really wanted to elaborate on it, like to the farthest level, then it's like they're literally stepping out of a craft or like something that landed and they're standing up out of the top of the hatch, you know? Who knows? I mean, they were definitely considered the spirit people and the spirit ancestors and the star people. But yeah, these bison are also so cool. We don't have to leave this edited in. It's up to you. But
Talk about this one.
you ready to talk about it?
No.
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 Oh, yeah. How did, like 3,000 years ago, how did they draw a picture of something that you have a picture of on your phone? You know?
Unbelievable.
It's pretty wild, man. That's pretty wild. It really is.
Still not sure what it all means, but we're getting close.
I think so. There's just like some dots and stuff there, but yeah.
I can tell you this. Bro needs to maybe hit the gym a little more. I don't know. That's super judgy. Maybe it's just but
Just cardio, dude. Just keep the cardio a little bit.
okay, it's
Hot as hell out though.
Right.
They are in the
We'll get
desert,
the-
you know.
we'll get the benefit of the doubt there. All right. Good call. Good call.
He doesn't even have arms or legs. He's just like a floating apparition. They all are going to pretty much have that tunic shape, that like triangle body shape. But it's funny because they could clearly draw circles and spirals easily.
Yeah.
And they do bullseyes and spirals and circles all the time. So why do they have to have square heads and bodies and arms like that? You know, maybe it's because that's what they saw.
You have like the same haircut as macaroni penguins or emperor penguins as well.
That's what I saw.
Those look like straight up bug people.
Still the idea though, they still got like something in their head.
Yeah, they do. It's spiral in the hand. That shield shape. Yeah, for sure. And the different styles, and there's like little people in the background there. Who are they?
I mean, what do you think, Plaque? Is that just like just like an artistic expression of people, maybe costumes they were, wearing during a celebration or something, or is that something a little more creepy? So what are your thoughts on that?
All right, so we moved to like Egyptian hieroglyphics, right? And it's like I would say a step up in like character design and I guess legibility and organization, right? And even they had like some really weird ones where it was like lizard people with legs and stuff, and not like the dog face people, and just really really strange. This is really strange too, especially like the stark change from one artistic representation to the other. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And we also know during that time there were the things going on in the Hollywood Hills with like actors, actresses, musicians, where they were, dosing them up and getting them to kind of push messages that they wanted them to push. Um, yeah, what a crazy time to be using these drugs to actually try to influence a future that you think would be better for everyone or something. It's so weird, right? And then we think like there's just no way our government would do this to us. So, just in case you had any doubt, it's brief, it's not long, maybe 5-10 minutes. This just covers artichoke and blue jay. These were two CIA secret programs, which included such acts as implanting diodes into someone's brain to try to control what they can do physically, implanting multiple diodes in animals to see what you can control physically, brainwashing, psychotherapy, followed by electroshock, and other things, memory loss. Yeah.
You know how thorough the military is, right? Like, and if they do brainwashing, they do brain dirtying. Just imagine what that even means.
All the way. Yeah, I don't fuck around. Okay, so I did make this video a little while ago. If you've seen it already, I apologize, but I do feel like it's kind of right on topic. There's some really interesting interviews with a couple of doctors that were actually performing the work back then. And I think at that point, it's very important to like watch their faces and watch how they respond to the questions. It's absolutely shocking. A lot of this comes from the archive footage. And the intro, I think, is just myself doing a short intro to the two programs. So here we go.
I haven't seen it before, but I remote viewed it just now, and it's great. And so I think we should watch it anyway.
This is why I love having you around, buddy. You already know what's going to happen. It's perfect. By the way, I'm going to need those lottery numbers by tomorrow. Okay, here we go. The CIA built a full behavior control library for Bluebird Artichoke, covering brainwashing, lie detection, hypnotism, amnesia, ESP, shock therapy, prefrontal lobotomy, and a who's who of drugs from mescaline to metrazole. Early OSS CIA experiments, we're talking 1945 to the 1950s, tested roughly 88 witting Americans using benzodrine, caffeine, scopolamine, alcohol, and THC acetate, and even ran an unwitting 1943 test on a notorious New York gangster. That gangster was Autist Little Augie Del Garcia, a New York mobster tied to Lucky Luciano. OSS agent George Hunter White spiked his cigarettes with a high dose of a cannabis extract or truth drug, and he noted he became extremely garrulous. Hypnosis wasn't just hand-waving. They explored disguised induction via machines like the polygraph, audio meters. Oh, I suppose.
Just because that alone, oh my god, dude!
What's that?
Luckily, Luciano was a member of the OSS. I don't know if you know that. He was also a member of the OSS.
Surprise me.
So it's almost as if he gave them carte blanche to do their bidding. You know how wild is that?
Beyond.
And cannabis, though, they just kind of put cannabis extract in a cigarette. That sounds like a pretty cool thing to do. You
It
know,
was like just any way that they could alter their mind, you know, and see what kind of doors they could open or close with altering that mind. I think
this is
half of
early
it
on,
was
though.
implanting the fake memories, and I think another chunk of it was making them forget, so they never remembered what happened.
This was before it got too crazy. This was when it was like antics mode. You know, implanting memories for this was like just people in like stuffed animal costumes come through the door and just kind of like have a party impromptu in the middle of this guy's living room. You know, they're trying to push the boundaries. So this guy only gets cannabis. The next one gets a little more crazy.
Ron Sykes said, that's nothing. July 1990, Mad Magazine, Trump wins election and builds Great Wall. Dang. If that isn't proof that time travel's a thing. You pair that with like all the Simpson stuff. Remember that? All the Simpson things they've gotten right over the years.
It'd be Alfred E. Newman, right? He'd be the one zipping through time and stuff. Just got to look out for that guy. I would imagine he's pretty recognizable with the freckles and the ears, you know, the red hair. You spot this guy a mile away.
It's a walking Chucky doll.
Oh, it is a perfect example, just with bigger ears.
All right, let's finish this up. So we got the CIA, Project Bluebird, Project Mockingbird. What they're doing essentially is figuring out a way to, in fact, I'm just going to go back just a minute so you don't have to hear me say it again. George Hunter White spiked his cigarettes with a high dose of a cannabis extract or truth drug. And he noted he became extremely garrulous. Hypnosis wasn't just hand waving. They explored disguised induction via machines like the polygraph, audiometers, and EKGs, aiming to trigger trance states covertly. Unlike MK Ultra, Bluebird Artichoke didn't throw huge sums at outside labs, but it tracked 357 folders of outside experts. We're talking doctors, psychiatrists, chemists, hypnotists, and officials at NIH, FDA, and the U.S. military. The stash even held a 35 millimeter film with microfilm docs on LSD and psychological warfare, not to mention random tourist snapshots mixed in. Why these were kept is anyone's guess. A sealed display card from Columbia University's Parkinson's research listed compounds 2 labeled 08958 and MK02. They couldn't be identified from the files, implying the 1950s investigational drugs may have been tied to Parkinson's research.
Of the study was to find out about communist brainwashing techniques. CIA documents show that the agency was interested in developing mind control methods of its own to precondition and control Chinese living in this country to be sent back to their homeland as CIA agents.
Okay, now, this is interesting. So that news report from the early 70s, when they were breaking the MK Ultra stuff, said the CIA was recruiting Chinese Americans, and they were trying to brainwash them using LSD and other techniques, and then send them back to China to spy for us. Not because the idea was if they don't know they're spying for us, they'll pass with flying colors, right? So we send them back. They don't know they're spying for us, but they actually are spying for us. Pretty scary shit, right? Just putting folks in jeopardy like that. Now, what I found interesting, this was a commercial from 2025, and this is the CIA targeting Chinese citizens to become U.S. spies. But this time, what they're offering...
Flip them. Flip flop, flip flop.
Yeah,
What you want is yourself a good double or triple spy. You know, if you can get them flipping so much where they don't know which side they're on, then you could brainwash them. That's the kind that you need.
Well, this is what they did here, right? They're selling them the dream. So they're saying, look, you know China's boring. You don't get to do nothing exciting. Watch all the cool stuff you get to do as a U.S. spy.
说筑梦人生，可惜我是为他人之梦。这场梦中，我无法决定结局，我的命都由他人掌控。这辈子努力耕耘，最终都是他人作手。不能再站在原地不动，拒绝躺平。要迈出第一步，是最艰难的。是时候构筑我自己的梦想了。
Fucking wild, right?
Dude, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Yet the agency's perception of the work you were doing, in CIA documents we have examined, it says that the project that was being done here, they intended to use everything learned about the new agents to induce them to, quote, to perform acts of a complex, purposeful nature.
Yeah, but that was
the
never
effects
done.
of which may be out of keeping with the individual's
That
previous
sort
behavior.
of thing was never done. Those people were not. That was when they first came here. The first people they sent up to see us, you see, were operation type people from the CIA with some rather wild idea. We were not able to do this nor interested in it.
They were.
Some of the low-level people were, but the high-level people were not.
But documents clearly show that the CIA was attempting to develop agents over whom they had as much control as possible. Agents who would perform tasks contrary to their own good. What in the world were they looking for with the magic mushrooms?
I think the best answer to that is that they were looking for fundamental information on compounds that would be capable of causing changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Don't remember having considered that specifically.
Okay, but more importantly, have you ever considered trimming your eyebrows?
I trust perhaps you've thought about it.
Well, I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
any of these substances would
have been given to
unwitting persons?
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No, I mean
that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
I mean testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
I'm Christy Nicola, born July of 1962, rendering me 32 years of age. I was a subject.
Okay, y'all, this is the part where I do need to say, if you got little ones around, if you're concerned about them hearing this stuff, if R's and abuse of that nature are a trigger for you, you may want to tune out to this part. It's some rough testimony that's given here. Brace yourselves. This is some very rough testimony, and I'm not for like just throwing this stuff out there, but the reason I am is because please let this settle in your bones, in your heart, in your soul, that this was our U.S. intelligence community that did this stuff to a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old girl.
In radiation, as well as mind control and drug experiments performed by a man I knew as Dr. Green, and Donald Richard Ebner, my natural father, was involved with Dr. Green in the experiments. I was a subject from 1966 to 1976. Dr. Green performed radiation experiments on me in 1970, focusing on my neck, throat, and chest, 1972 focusing on my chest and my uterus in 1975. Each time I became dizzy, nauseous, and threw up. All these experiments were performed on me in conjunction with mind control techniques and drugs in Tucson, Arizona. His objective was to gain control of my mind and train me to be a spy assassin. The first significant memory took place at Kansas City University in 1966. Don Ebner took me there by plane when my mom was out of town. I was in what looked like a laboratory, and there seemed to be other children. I was strapped down, naked, spread eagle, on a table, on my back. Dr. Green had electrodes on my body, including my head. He used what looked like an overhead projector and repeatedly said he was burning different images into my brain while a red light flashed aimed at my forehead. In between each sequence, he used electric shock on my body. I was 4 years old. You can see from this experiment that Dr. Green used
doing this to a 4-year-old. And, you know, the cherry on top of the ice cream is it was her own father that took her in for these tests. How just absolutely earth-shattering that must have been.
trauma, drugs, post-hypnotic suggestion, and more trauma in an effort to gain total control of my mind. Dr. Green moved on to wanting me to kill dolls that looked like real children. He often tied me down in a cage, which was near his office. Between 1972 and 1976, he and his assistants were sometimes careless and left the cage unlocked. Whenever physically possible, I snuck into his office and found files with reports and memos addressed to CIA and military personnel. He wanted me dead. I developed multiple personality disorder because Dr. Green's goal was to split my mind into as many parts as possible so he could control me totally. He failed, but I've had to endure years of constant physical, mental, and emotional pain, even to this day. I ask that you keep in mind that the memories I've described are but a glimpse of the countless others that took place over the 10 years between 1966 and 1976.
Saying they took an already abused 7-year-old child and compounded my suffering beyond belief. The saddest part is, I know for a fact that I was not alone. There were countless other children in my same situation, and there was no one to help us. Dr. L. Wilson Green, who claimed to have received $50 million from the Edgewood Chemical and Radiology Laboratory, once described to Dr. Charles Brown that, quote, children were used as subjects because they were more fun to work with and cheaper, too. They needed lower profile subjects than soldiers or government people, so only young, willing females would do. Besides, he said, I like scaring them. They in the agency think I'm a god, creating subjects experiments for whatever deviant purposes Sid and James can think up. Sid being Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, James, Dr. James Hamilton. Dr. John Gittinger tested me, Dr. Cameron gave me the shocks, and Dr. Green the x-rays. Then I was told by Sid Gottlieb that, quote, I was right for the big A, or the artichoke. I would remember only whatever explanations Dr. Robert G. Heath at Tulane Medical University gave me for the odd bruises, needle marks, burns on my head, fingers, and even the genital soreness. The next year, I was sent to a lodge in Maryland called Deep Creek Cabins to learn how to sexually please men. I was taught how to coerce them into talking about themselves, and it was Richard Helms, who was deputy director at the CIA, Dr. Gottlieb, Captain George White, Morris Allen, who all planned on filming as many high government agency officials and heads of academic institutions and foundations as possible, so that later when the funding for mind control and radiation started to dwindle, projects would continue. I was used to entrap many unwitting men, including themselves, all with the use of a hidden camera. I was only 9 years old when this sexual retaliation began. I overheard conversations about a part of the agency called ORD, which I found out was Office of Research and Development, Warren and Morris Allen. Quote, in order to keep more funding coming from different sources for radiation and mind control projects, he suggested stepping up the amounts of stressors used, and also the blackmail portion of the experiments. He said it needed to be done faster than to get rid of the subjects, or they were asking for us to come back later and haunt them with our remembrances.
Is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds. And this is a major function of the CIA. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business, to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Well, give me a concrete example of how you use the press this way, how a false story is planted and how you got it published.
Well, for example, in my war, the Angola war that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Times. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe, Reuters and AFP. The management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was. And we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims. And then we ran photographs, almost every newspaper in the country, of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbundu women who supposedly had been their victims.
These were fake photos?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast and that sort of totally false propaganda.
We acted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole News and Public Affairs operation in 1954, ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI? Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of the CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of world conditions. It seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public.
Okay, welcome, Nathaniel. Glad you joined us. But yeah, the end part of that, adding Bustamante in there, was because just an example of how the narrative gets controlled, right? The fact that they would rather, to prevent panic, they would rather have Americans believe it's a UAP instead of a Chinese spy balloon. That's a pretty interesting data point, I think. And I think for me, it points to, yeah, we definitely could have done this legacy program that we all feel like is out there and has been going on for a long time. So how you doing, Nathaniel?
Oh, doing well. Just looking over all these materials that are kind of going in line with this. What we've just listened to was, you know, par for the course, except for, even Bustamante's, well, we don't really do it that way, but that's not the truth, entirely
Right.
either. So, yeah.
You're like, they're tired, right? Because it's like, is he just out doing what the bosses asked him to do, which was connect with this young, podcast group, because we saw how they basically helped win an election. So there's a lot of influence, I think, there. So yeah, he could completely still be active, and we just think he's done in a podcaster. He seems pretty young to be a retired CIA guy. I will say that.
Well, that's a good point.
Come on now, he's got nice long hair. You can tell he's out of the CIA now. By his sweet, long, hippie hair.
Yeah, absolutely. What is this one? We're going to reset the space with a little classic song.
I'm a treetop flyer, born survivor. People been asking me, where'd you learn to fly that way? It's over in Vietnam, chasing NBA. The government taught me, and they taught me right. Stay down under the tree line, you might be alright. Treetop flyer. I promised my woman this is gonna be my last. I get the ship down, I tie her fast. And then some old boy walks up and he says, hey son, we'll make some fast cash. The treetop flyer.
Man, that is a classic.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
You know, I don't know why they had to fly planes that low back then.
Yeah, I liked it.
So how you doing, Nathaniel? What you been working on?
I'm good. I've been working on this giant timeline. I'm I'm happy and afraid. It might be like 450 pages before I have to dig into it, but it's
So
nice for me.
What's gonna be like actually included in the timeline?
It has the work of several researchers. I've been pulling out the timelines of So the lens of it is looking at corporate aerospace,
Okay, cool.
following the wealth and the money. That's one thread. The second is following advanced physics, propulsion and energy specifically, coherent matter waves, levitation, lasers, light craft technologies, aether physics going back to, the 16th, the 3rd, the pre-2000 centuries. And that's a history thread of the science.
I love that I see 2 triangles in your profile picture, and the triangle is the craft that I had an experience with when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I believe that can be tracked to, the legacy aerospace programs consolidated from the 90s going forward.
Yeah, I racked my brain and researched and researched and researched, and it seems like it was a military reverse engineered craft, basically. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, and part of my for my thesis, it's that the just because of like some of this language, right? Like this reverse engineer, recovered, crash retrieval, gifted. What I'm finding through my research is there's no such need for other things besides the human innovation that was already there. The polarizable vacuum, for example, that is contributed to put off goes back 20 more years that we don't know, and another decade before that even. It has a legacy of knowledge. And these legacy programs are really just the continuation of a solid background of science that's been emerging from, the past 200 years, is the thesis.
Yeah, it's a good one. I have been not enough lately because I had a little health thing, but I do plan on digging more into um, Glenn Gaffney. Have you heard anything about this guy, Nathaniel?
I've heard to, I've just pulled him in and tried to research. I don't know him extensively, but I have heard that he came up recently. Maybe it was from you in one of these edit spaces we've been doing lately.
It could, yeah, it could have been, because I know I've dropped it a couple places a couple times, but if you just look at the bullets, I mean, and so during that UAP hearing, did you watch that whole thing?
No, I didn't. I've been in the past, but tell me.
It was well, it was really strange because one of the Senate members, actually I think those are House members, House representatives, they asked if one of them could name a single person related to these legacy programs. And like it was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. You know what I mean? And so the representative was like, oh, okay, I guess we're moving on to the next question. And he starts asking someone that's not George Knapp the next question. When Jeremy Corbell leans forward and whispers into George Knapp's ear, George Knapp sits forward and then interrupts this man's question and says, actually, I have a name for you, Glenn Gaffney. And it's the only name he gave.
That's a dramatic moment for sure, and great. Yeah.
That's why I felt like I had to tell the story that way, because for him to just say the name would be one thing, but it was like there was careful consideration, and they made sure that this name got out. So I just thought that was really interesting.
That's an interesting way to put it, because it isn't curious to follow the connections here. You said Corbell whispered to Knapp, and then that was out. So that's just the chain of that for what it's worth, right? No assessment.
Right. All kinds of interesting stuff there, I thought. But then I pulled up his profile, and I mean, it does kind of. It's Director of Science and Technology for CIA, Deputy Director National Intelligence for Collection, Associate Director CIA for Talent, VP Senior Fellow in InQtel, a strategic investor in Ready Soon Technology, Chief Strategy Officer for the Noble Reach Foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that Ready Soon, because for the science community, it's the inside joke for cold fusion or coherent matter or low energy nuclear reactions is that no matter when you ask, it's always 20 years away.
It's an interesting term for sure. And I got
in the 40s.
So I got to learn more.
It's a I'm on it, boss situation.
I think it's a punt and moving the goalposts, and every time they're like, oh wow, well we could. How are we going to drip this? How are we going to let this be the Reaganomics theory where we can profit from some ancillary thing and keep this? And then they make further developments, and then someone out in the light world makes a public discovery, and then they're like, dang, okay, well, hundreds of replications. All right, let's get the DoD to shut it down. So, by then, they've all, it seems like through the legacy of research with all of the confinement fusion and the tokamaks, for goodness sakes, are old. Anytime you have a big plasma reactor, that's old technology. And the fact that they're still putting them up and up is an interesting point, but it's not like where the leading edge of the technology is. That's been in the books, and this is a lot to cover in just in a second, but
Yeah.
you've got, portable modular nuke batteries and stuff, and you've got a magnetic confinement fusion schemes, and you've got other successful people littered throughout the decades. And the point is that if it was true now, and the same person did something like that 100 years ago, then it was always true from 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah, they'll always be able to find someone, for sure, for sure. What's it? Ron's got a couple comments. Let's see here, Ron. So Ron says first, he says Walt Disney, head of MK Ultra. That's a hot take. Anyone heard that one before?
No, I haven't, but it's interesting to put Werner von Braun with Walt Disney making space application videos seriously in the 50s. A lot of good footage comes from that on what was possible. So that goes to the CIA Mockingbird control narrative connection, because already in the height elite, what will be corporate media giant is already a hand-in-hand walk with the aerospace companies. And
yeah, Ron, we love you. We love the participation. Not gonna lie, I have not seen your channel, but I will 100% go check it out. No problem. I'm all about supporting anyone in this field in any way that I can.
I'll give it to him though, because what's her name? Kathy O'Brien mentions his role in MK Ultra with just think about all the project names, Snow White and so forth, and then you have the claims of brainwashing, and then the use of like Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude. To me, the brainwashing thing is so terrifying. Not having access to your own thoughts and being able to control your own actions. God, that just terrifies me. I don't know why. It's a special kind of scary.
I highly, I'm just doing I'll do a cursory, research here. Shout out, well, no, it's just a company, but I really like Perplexity for doing first researches. They do a good job of finding from YouTube videos and post ArchiveX and ResearchGate and papers. So see if we can come up with something. Yeah, Perplexity. I don't use Grok. I don't use the other stuff. I only will say a few things, and that's for Perplexity. Specifically use the free deep research method. I'm doing that right now with Glenn Gaffney Aerospace, and I'll get back to you.
This is.
Are we doing shout-outs right now? We're doing shout-outs, Gabriel?
Oh, we certainly can. You got yours?
Yep, I got full stack Logan. I want to shout out my because you can take down a full stack of pancakes one sitting, no problem. Fucking easy, dude. I want to give a shout out to Tupac Chupacabra. He's two things just in one, which is why he's real cool. We got Red Panda Koala Bear. He's got a little hat and he's a little rascal. I want to also give a big old shout out to Al. I want to give a big old shout out to, I don't know if Gabriel Speaks. He's a pretty cool guy. I'm going to say my friend Nathaniel Hanks, part of the Sherman Hanks trilogy. There's only 3 of them, and he is one of them. The Big Sherm dog. I also want to give a big shout out to Jesus. What up, Jesus? Bless up, dog. And a shout out to you at home listening to the chaos.
Yep. Because if you're listening to this, you might be in trouble. I kid.
You're for sure in trouble. You're in trouble by someone somewhere. Just remember that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So Nathaniel, anything recently come out that you're interested in as far as breaking news? Every time I ask him that, he takes off. Maybe I have to restart. If not, let's see.
He ran away. He did not like my shadow mounts.
There he is.
Now I need to, I did. In fact, I was going to tell you on YouTube, search full Glenn Gaffney, former CIA director of science and technology. It's under the Force for Good. Have you seen this video? It's new to me.
Hold on. Glenn Gaffney, Force.
Former CIA director. Force for Good is the channel. 3,000 views a year ago.
Ooh. All right, that's good. Well, Glenn Goofney, more like it.
Yeah, and again, just to wrap it back around, that came from the Perplexity search as well as several other things, but that's just on hand.
Okay, let's check it out. And he's got
Next generation space. Yeah, fusion's the key word there, because that's the.
All right, let's get this going here. Let's see what this guy has to say for himself, Mr. Gaffney. What kind of man are you? All right. So this was an interview with ESG News, former director of science and technology at the CIA, CSO Noble Reach, talks about AI, tech, and the world.
Yeah, and note there's a 2 minute and a 35. I was pointing to the full 35.
Yeah, this should be the 35, but if it gets too boring or whatever, we'll just turn it off.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, Glenn.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Glenn, why don't we kick off with an introduction that you make on your very interesting background, please.
Thank you. I spent 31 years in the U.S. intelligence community, almost all of that doing science and technical analysis or tech development, developing new capabilities and being able to bring them forward into the foreign field to collect intelligence. Spent said 31 years in the U.S. intelligence community. I had the
Can you
great.
say which part of the intelligence community?
Yes, I had the great. So I was in the CIA for almost all of those years, except for 2, where I was at the office of the Director of National Intelligence as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence for collection, which had oversight over the community's collection operations.
When you say collection, just for us, would you explain what
espionage
that means?
operations against gathering secrets from other countries that meant to do us harm, but also intelligence operations to.
Wait, so when he was in the private industry, he was helping some of these companies with espionage? Alrighty. Sounds retired to me.
Work, counter narcotics, counter terrorism, and any one of a number of different things. So it was both the domestic agencies and the foreign agencies that intelligence mission. I had the great good fortune during my time at CIA to eventually serve as the director of science and technology there, where I had responsibility for everything that we were doing on the science and technology front, from research all the way through development and then deployment and operations to collect intelligence, process that intelligence, use technology in the interpretation of that data or in the application of that data, as we would then give it to analysts within the CIA to do the analysis that they needed to do for the national security team.
When you left that, Glenn, you went on to look at science and technology and its impact, the positive impact in the world at large. What was that next phase of your career?
So the next phase, after I retired from the federal government, was I joined a company called Inquitel, which has been around for well over 25 years now, and they are a strategic investor, strategic tech investor. So you can think of it as a lot of times it's referred to as CIA's venture arm, which is not quite correct, but they are a strategic investor, not for profit, that looks at ready soon technology that has both economic or the potential for strong economic impact, as well as helping in the national security front. And so Incutel identifies those technologies, brings teams together of venture players who make an investment in that technology and then bring that technology forward, oftentimes with what we would call a work program or an evolutionary step that would modify the technology in a way that in many times makes it even more fitting for the economy or more fitting for national security.
And in the most recent work you're doing, how is that somewhat different from that?
So what I'm doing now, I'm working as the chief strategy officer for a new not-for-profit called the Noble Reach Foundation. And what we do there is we are not investors. We are a team that does two things. We focus on tech translation, that we think we identify tech that's still in its research phase. And while the research is still going on, we bring teams of experts in, former CEOs, folks who have been through the valley of death and translating research into technology, into product. We bring embedded experts in who have different experiences in key technical areas like biotech or in lasers or in AI, right, machine learning. We'll find the right experts, bring them in, work with the research team, and put them on a path towards commercialization. But the technologies that we identify aren't just for the economy. We're also looking at ones that we think could have real social impact, right, and an impact for good. And so on the tech translation side of the house, that's what our focus is, and we're enjoying working with these teams and bringing them forward. And we've been successful with it in the last few years, which has been very gratifying. The other half of what we do as Noble Reach is the talent side. We serve as Noble Reach as a bridge between government, industry, and academia. And if you think about it from the tech translation side, government's funding research. They're funding us to come in and work with the research teams. Most of those are academic research teams, right? And then we're bringing that forward and connecting them in with industry. On the talent side, we're still acting as that bridge between those three. And we have a vision of creating a new cadre or a new interest in government service, in helping students, graduates, right, see the value and see their careers and see what they can do in their career that actually is mission oriented and helps move, right, some of these key missions forward, for the country and for our allies. And so we have a vision of. We talk about it going from why to wow, talking to students and talking with folks about, potential career or potential service time with the government, which for many, that's why would I do that? But what we want to do is give them experiences through internships, scholarships, fellowships, where they realize how important this work is, how meaningful it can be, and that they can serve with their skills in the government or in industry or in academia in a unified, integrated way to actually solve some of the toughest problems, right, that are facing the nation.
Power.
Are
It's
you?
not a surprise, right? I mean,
No, but it's explicit here. This is like the thesis extension for like the mechanism of technology as power control and the bridge over international entities, which is part of the transnational thesis that already exists for like corporate control in the 20th century. Now the 21st is running this forward because you get China a billion and then you get India also. So, and it's a power structure reshaping and the explicitness that people talk about it. We could get into. I'll land my UFO here on the field.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear. It almost seems like since the Trump era began, in the first term, that kind of the gloves have just come off as far as correctness and procedure and order. It seems like those things don't seem to matter as much.
And it's the mask is slipping, because whatever that administration had as its like no theater mask of perpetuating this thing, it was going to have the same substructure running through. It was like always corporate. That's why you see the Republican administrations favoring corporate, tend to be like oligarchic interests. That's why you have like My Pillow guys and like rich small stuff, and then you have the corporate side of the oligarchy and the Democratic side. They're more aligned with corporate institution and like more established power. And so usually it's like Republicans fighting to get a piece of that, like through the oligarchs getting into like the corporate pie. But they're both serving like the same, fascistic or people say like libertarians. Like, okay, so we have corpo kings, feudalism, because that's what this shakes out to, and it underlines like the nature of corporate, private, established powers here. And so the mask is flipping, and no either side's end, it's going to do the thing that it's doing, and this is the extension of it.
Well, and that's that's the thing is that they're only going to be able to do that for so long.
Dude, I'm just angry. I'm punching everything. Just the science in general, dude. They're keeping it from us. They don't want us to know stuff is there and existing. They got the UFOs. They won't give us the UFOs. And I'm mad. Just angry.
The truth may set you free, but at first it could piss you off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a band that goes by the name of Quiet Riot, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now because of the time. It's like 2 a.m. by me, but I'm quietly showing my frustration. I'm cool with rocking. This is rock and roll time, but I'm just letting you know I'm quietly rioting to myself.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get that stuff, buddy. I think it's going to be like with JFK, where if legitimate legacy stuff comes out, at least that they're willing to admit is legitimate legacy stuff, everybody in the program will be dead by then. So that way they won't have to worry about repercussions. And that's what they did with the JFK files. They're like, okay, we'll release them when everyone that could possibly implicate it is dead. And that's probably what they're going to do here. Because like these men, if you listen to what Tom DeLonge says about these men, they're heroes, right? They're kind of going against their own will to serve. That's why they call it service, and perform these tasks and then hold this secret inside for the rest of their lives. And in doing that, some of them broke the law, obviously.
I just want to say this, right? Like, so he used the term hero, okay? And I don't think that if you hold any secrets in, you're a hero. No, I'm just saying he did, all right? But we also didn't ask him to specify if it's a sandwich he's describing, because that's not hero behavior. But if you're describing a sandwich, it is sandwich-like behavior, especially if it's a chicken sandwich.
Well, what as a soldier, let's say, did you ever serve?
Me? No, they wouldn't let me.
That's right. That's
short. I was too short. You know, in reality, guys, I'm only like 3'5".
What about you, Nathaniel?
All anger, though. Very angry, 3'5". What's that?
No, I have not. Me personally.
All I can say is, like, when you're trained up, right? They've got you all brainwashed as a soldier, and you're wearing all that gear, and you take orders, or people could die. You do what your command tells you to do, and you do it without question, because if you don't, then then the problems can get worse. If you do and it's a mistake, that should fall back on the commander, not on you. The only order you shouldn't follow in the military is one that's blatantly illegal. So if you get an order that's blatantly illegal, you do not have to follow that order. But any other order.
But also, like, you also don't have to follow an order as like a human if it's like blatantly immoral. Like, people walk away from those situations like that, and that's like a separate trend in history. Yeah, as a human.
Just seeing bad shit. Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's a choice, right? But God, it's a tough one.
Yeah, you don't have to follow the order. One that follows the order did follow the order. There was no, even if it's a gun to your head, to like put a gun to someone else's head, that was a decision, and that just needs to be reckoned. And it's not like obviated by the fact that you were told to do some evil shit, because that's what Nuremberg's established as, like, you know what I mean, a common understanding of too fucked up.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get it. And dude, war is wrong on every single level. It's the worst thing on this planet Earth. It's the worst thing that man ever came up with.
Yeah, point to Borland, and he's traumatized, and talks about it.
Right. Right. And I mean, but the thing is like, if it depends on your role. So like if you're out there and you're a soldier, like you doing your job is going to help keep other people alive. And even if maybe you don't agree with what your overall mission is or whatever, it's like grow up and become a politician, and then you can start deciding on what those missions are going to be. But while you're in the service, it's like that's what you do, bud. That's why they call it service. We want you to brush
Yeah.
the toilet with a toothbrush. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like that's then by that logic, this program couldn't come out, or there couldn't be a whistleblower,
Yeah.
but
That's
because like, and then other people do also break away with it. Like the thing is, if you are going to do the thing, all those things you said are true, but if you decide that there's a thing that you won't accept, then that's just like a different line, because I think it's important to understand like what this thing was reckonably is like a bad guy war machine for domination of resources on the planet. It's been weaponized. Like people aren't fighting to like keep people safe.
No. Yeah, absolutely not. No, we're fighting over resources like always. Tale as old.
Well, it's not even over resources like as if it were like a fair thing. It's like for the domination and control of the existing control of it. This extends from like robber baron capture and creation of the CIA in the 1900s.
What's amazing is the bombings on these little Venezuelan boats and basically declaring war on Venezuela. But you know what that's about. You know why?
Yeah, and the whole thing of declaring war, that hasn't happened. We haven't been at war since, the World War II. It's just like an active state of aggression and dominance. The posture is already one of like complete control.
Yep.
Well, and Vietnam, it wasn't, I mean, like was the last one really, or we talk about the Gulf War, but we kind of label that for the fact is like, it must be because there was open aggression and violence. However, there wasn't like a democratic decision to do it. That left, hell, that was gone in World War II.
Yeah, but if we wouldn't have went to Vietnam, that thing would have totally happened, or that stuff would have thinged, and then the other thing would have stuffed. You know what I mean?
And then, everybody would be eating socialist babies for dinner, as that guy established, right? That was the strategy.
Yeah, but so what's wrong with that? What are you, a communist?
Yeah, exactly. If
that was the logic then. It didn't make any fucking sense. Why the hell were we there in the first fucking place, man? What would have happened had we not? What, France would have been a little fucking perturbed?
Yeah, and no, but also, go ahead, please. Sorry, this is my show. I'm just talking on a thing.
No. One thing, I feel like we're all commiserating to the same fucking end goal of Vietnam was bullshit.
Well,
yes. Dude, you mentioned a lot more than Vietnam, but like Vietnam specifically really pisses me the hell off.
Well, no, it's because like
faked an attack against us to try to get us into it. So that right there.
Yeah.
Good.
And it goes back to like
Ron Sykes, just to go back just real quick, sorry to interrupt. So Ron Sykes 5035, that's gonna be his YouTube channel. And according to him, all the science is on his channel on YouTube. So go check that out. I will hop over there and subscribe myself. You got it, buddy. Okay, sorry to interrupt. So no. There's not a real mission on what we're doing here, which is bullshitting.
Well, I just wanted to point out that like we watched the first half of Everything's a Rich Man's Trick the other day, and it was amazing because we kind of had the skeleton for the thesis through like Sheehan and Greer and and just like critical theory, right? Of like what's going on, and it really does extend back to corporate capital, robber baron, like weaponized capitalism, because it's not even free at this moment. There's not like a free market. I mean, so it really extends all the way back to that. And if you follow it, then what you end up seeing is that the communist threat was really just people wanting to keep what was theirs and not have it be someone else's that they controlled. That's it. It was wanting to maintain sovereignty of the Panama Canal, the resources in your own place.
Yeah, I always thought it was weird how we like, you know, we teamed up with them, with the Russians and with China, and we beat the Nazis in World War II. And then as soon as that was over, it was like the race is on against our two countries.
Yeah, well, in this theory that actually the West created Hitler as a monster that was obviously going to be fought by the Russians because it was their thing. And then it got off the leash, and then and then the other side joined in to kill that thing, and then to establish something new. And it wasn't like, you know, some third thing. It was like they made this thing as like an arm against them already, and so of course they were fighting. If they weren't like, we didn't side with them, like we, you know what I mean? Like we ended up having to go in and correct a mistake finally and reorient things back to an industrial manufacturing base in America and the Western established world order with bases all over, etc.
The empire.
Yeah, the fucking empire, as South Pai says. Excuse my French, pardon. Yeah,
You're good, buddy.
it was quoting.
So FLAK.
So really, once you see all this, like the hopeful thing about it is just like a little point, like there's a movement going on currently, like you know, there's a dynamic at large. Like since we've looked in the past, we can kind of see more clearly what's going on in the present, and you can look at like pharmaceutical companies as not disconnected from this phenomenon. You know,
Right. No, I don't think so either. I think Jesse Michaels just did an episode on that too. That it's not hard to make the leap where if there's all these secret UAP programs, that there's a lot of secrets in the healthcare programs, as our healthcare is more of a commodity these days than anything else. I didn't get to watch the whole episode, but what I heard sounded really interesting. Like, you know,
yeah, they privatize, you know, like
confiscated, and then the guys never get it back, and just weird stuff like that.
So now that we're already slightly on the topic, what did you think of that documentary, bud?
The Everything's a Rich Man's Trick.
Yep, that's the one.
Oh yeah, I was kind of mentioning it, I highly recommend, especially the first hour. But once you get the paperclip, so like, there's a good Twin Peaks clip.
Rich Man's clip.
Everything's a Rich Man's Trick. 4 million, 5 million views, and that's like a late re-upload, right? Like this just gets 5 million views whenever it gets back alive after being taken down.
So
you know, that's my characterization. Yep. And the big takeaway is when everybody says, now this thing is a perfect synthesis of the corporate thread that I was discussing earlier. It doesn't have the science element, which if you track it and weave it in, you get a bigger picture, you know. But it's very good for understanding what was going on before Roswell and Paperclip. Like we just naive, good old cherry pie Americans took over Nazis, and then the story gets weird. No, not at all.
Is it a 9-minute video? Oh,
no, it's a 3.5 hour documentary. Yes, and we watched the first hour and 45 just together and paused it, and that's why I'm highlighting the key, you know, section is like in the first quarter, the first third, going into World War.
Here we go.
Timestamps. FLAK might, but you know, if you just let it roll or like scrub, and I would recommend, you know, just for myself too, and like just pause it whenever it gets like to the dark, you know, like, you know, side of what they were doing and, you know, the hog, but also maybe not, because what's interesting is it redefines the network of work camps as a corporate extension, just like factories in China, as a means of extracting resources through the Reich as a larger entity than the Reich. That's the big.
This one here?
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, should we watch it for a little bit?
I highly recommend it to get your, I think this is like wake up pills, you know?
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm down. I'll watch 15, 20 minutes of it.
I also recommend it highly.
Okay, let's do
it. I would start at like 50 seconds in.
50 seconds in.
Because then, like, even the first 5 minutes, dude, he hits so many different things. It's wild.
In the immediate aftermath of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the American government came to the conclusion that a lone gunman had changed the course of human history by killing the most powerful man in the world with 3 rifle shots fired from the elevated window of an office building. And for half a century, they have stuck rigidly to this fabrication, while critics, scientists, playwrights, and poets have produced books and essays and films to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that this version of our Western history is a physical impossibility. Over and over again, we have been told that this man did it by himself. He didn't have any help, and he did it because he was a lonely madman and a communist to boot. We are also meant to believe that there is nothing remotely suspicious in his being shot on live television in a basement full of police officers before he had a chance to tell his side of the story. So there is quite clearly no need to investigate further. Of course, every thinking person knows this is absolute nonsense. And being nonsensical, it naturally leads thinking people to ask some very important questions like, why did the American government come up with such a lame and improbable scenario to account for what had happened? And then why did they stick with it so dogmatically for so many years afterwards? Exactly what and who are they protecting? And how can it be that even such venerable institutions as the BBC have played along with this charade in the intervening decades? We now know that there were actually 8 riflemen firing at the president on that day. We know where they were located in Dealey Plaza, and we know their names. However, those with sharp eyes will already be asking themselves why we were only showing the location of 6 assassins in this schematic. We're doing this because any casual onlooker who happened to be in Dealey Plaza at 12:29 on November 22nd, 1963, might well have caught sight of these 6. Many people did. Witnesses like Arnold Rowland, Richard Randolph Carr, Lee Bowers, Amos Hewins, Mary Morman, they all gave precise descriptions of men they observed in the windows of the book depository and on the famous grassy knoll. But none of them observed 2 of the riflemen who shot at the president. No one did. And the reason why no one did is itself the key to the mystery. A mystery which begins with a very simple question. Supposing you wanted to shoot at a man on a barren, empty street without anybody seeing you, where could you possibly hide? However, the riflemen who took part in the assassination were not as important to an understanding of what the Kennedy assassination was really all about as were a group of 20 men who had gathered together the night before at the home of Dallas oil millionaire Clint Murchison. These men were a much more important part of the story than the assassins themselves because they hired the 8 snipers and paid them. We even know how much they paid them. So who were these men? What brought them together to orchestrate such a foul and despicable deed? Why did they, and more importantly, those who came after them, cover up the crime with such ruthless brutality for so long afterwards? And how can it be that these men and what they stood for has left an indelible legacy which still influences our daily lives right up to the present day? To answer these questions, we must inevitably step back into history. And most people will not like this very much, because most people have very little interest in history. This, however, is going to be a history lesson, quite unlike anything that anyone has ever heard. It certainly will be nothing like what we are taught in school, and yet it begins with a name which most people have heard, but probably won't be able to place. The name of E.H. Harriman. Who was E.H. Harriman?
It's ready, Butch. Mr. E.H. Harriman himself, he had the confidence to open the door, or that's it. Do you think E.H. Harriman would get himself killed for you? Woodcock? I worked for Mr. E.H. Harriman on the Union Pacific Railroad. He entrusted me.
Sure, Americans in particular will be amused to learn that Edward Henry Harriman was actually a real historical figure. This man was one of America's first industrial giants, and like the Rockefellers in oil and the Carnegies in steel, he got his start by borrowing money from the Rothschilds, of whom we'll hear more later, to create a monopoly for his own business, which was railroads. He was the 19th century railroad king. It was a monopoly which wouldn't be allowed today, and it helped in turn to create the Rockefeller oil monopoly. Now, this gave America's first industrial giants colossal power. These were the first people in human history, we mustn't forget, whose businesses were worth more than most countries. People whose fortunes dwarfed anything that the Caesars or the Tudors or the Medici ever dreamed of. So, being greedy, they used this power to engage in price fixing. Naturally, they formed a cartel. Their attitude was that they could charge whatever they liked for steel and oil and transporting goods on the railways. They knew that all American business was dependent on them, and they'd made sure there was no competition. So they could ignore market forces and charge pretty much whatever they liked. Now, this naturally caused resentment, and it's very interesting that the press at that time started calling these first Illuminati bankers and industrialists robber barons. Of course, once these fortunes began to be made, others naturally tried to get in on the act. One who succeeded was J.P. Morgan, who became a private banker during this period. But modern critics have discovered that far from being the richest man in America everyone thought he was, it turned out upon his death that Morgan actually only owned 17% of Morgan Bank, and that like so many others, he was simply a front for the Rothschild family. 5 years after E.H. Harriman died and handed on the business to his sons, W. Averill Harriman and E. Rowland Harriman, this new breed of Western business moguls faced their first really big test with the coming of World War I. Once again, we must never forget that this was the first time in human history that a truly global conflict had been fought. It was sure to have long-lasting international repercussions, and many observers at the time had their doubts as to whether Western industrial capitalism, which was still in its infancy, could cope with the demands of war production. In the world economic recession which followed, many feared these fledgling industries might vanish altogether as countries struggled with debt and war reparations. But actually, Western capitalism emerged from World War I in a far stronger state than it was in at the beginning. So how could this be? The First World War taught the new class of international bankers and industrialists a very simple lesson. War is good for business. Take, for instance, Remington. We tend to associate their name with typewriters, but actually they made most of the rifles and handguns used during the Great War, and made a colossal fortune in the process. The banks, in their turn, lapped this up because it meant that defence contractors were having no trouble repaying the huge loans they had outstanding, and, best of all, the world's richest nations had had to borrow huge sums from the merchant bankers in the first place to finance the war, the Americans and the British just as much as the Germans. And they would now be repaying these loans to the banks for decades to come at a steep rate of interest. For international merchant bankers, the Rothschilds in particular, the First World War had been a gift from heaven. And people watching this should ask themselves a simple question before passing judgment. Supposing you were in business during that war and the contract you had with the government to supply the troops with tin hats or boots or uniforms or gunpowder was netting you millions every year in profit. And then one day the war ended and your money stopped completely. What do you think your attitude to war might be? That war was good for business was not the only lesson the ruling classes learned during this period. The Russian Revolution of 1917 terrified rich people all over the world. Watching Lenin and Trotsky taking over such a vast area of the globe, the kings and queens of Europe's tiny sovereign states in particular became extremely nervous. The question on all their minds was, supposing the communist success in Russia should inspire their own working class to rise in revolt. Many of the crowned heads of Europe, like England's George V, had been related to Tsar Nicholas, and the brutal execution of the Tsar and his family, particularly the bayoneting of his young daughters, sent a shockwave through the upper classes of every nation. Did a similar fate lie in store for the royal families of Holland, Sweden, Spain, and England? This question was lying heavily on the thoughts of the elite when the First World War ended in 1918, and it had the effect of focusing the minds of the new Illuminati bankers and industrialists on the question of what to do for best with a defeated and dilapidated Germany. The population were poor, penniless, and worn out, yet the German economy still contained some of the most sophisticated and expensive industrial stock on the planet. The Illuminati sensed an opportunity. Supposing, as the world's first international businessmen, they could get their hands on Germany's steel mills, her coal mines, her factories, ports, and her shipbuilding industry. Over the years, certain names have become very familiar to those who maintain an interest in the Kennedy assassination, none more so than Allen Dulles, whom Kennedy fired after the Bay of Pigs disaster, and yet later he somehow managed to chair the Warren Commission, which was supposed to be investigating Kennedy's death. It's announced the legendary UK economist J. Maynard Keynes maintained it was a ludicrous sum, and he did a swift calculation from which he reasoned that it would take Germany until 1988, 60 years hard labour, to pay it off. But it didn't. So why? Maynard Keynes sensed that the Dulles brothers, backed as they were by the new Illuminati, were trying quite deliberately to sabotage the German economy, and they succeeded. As mass unemployment led to hyperinflation, the famous stories of people papering their walls with worthless Reichsmarks and handing over their life savings for a loaf of bread soon followed. With German investors on their knees, the new Illuminati moved in and began buying up shares of stock in German industry at a knockdown price. Now, why did they do this? The cynical mind would say to make a buck, but it really wasn't that simple. What they wanted...
Maybe I missed it, but who is, when they refer to Illuminati, who is Illuminati?
Gotcha. I asked that the wasn't addressed. However, it refers to not the. This is my impression. It's not referring to the common parlance of Illuminati, but the actual phrase used by the people of themselves to say they are illumined or enlightened or elite. That it's a self-referential. They call themselves that.
Okay, so they're like, they get to a certain level of intelligence or wealth or success and they consider themselves like illuminated?
Well, there's also secret society connections to this, which will be explored. It's not a coincidence. Skull and Bones, Sovereign Military Order of the Knights of Malta, the Council on Foreign Relations interweaves with all this. So it's not simply like they only met at business in the office. They have existing connections, family, etc.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because there's so many. When you say Illuminati, there's like 50 different theories.
Exactly, and I want to be careful. In my own thing, I would not be clipping around that because I know that that's like without being fleshed out, it's like a unnecessary yellow flag in the mind.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it does make sense, you know.
Yep. But yeah, no, it does make sense in that, like, there are characters out there like that. Maybe it's not called Illuminati or whatever, but there are folks with a lot of money, a lot of power, and like Joker said, some of them just want to see it burn. I don't know.
Yeah, now people, instead of calling themselves Illuminati, might just call themselves superstars. Just joking, but like it's illumination, it's light, it's power.
Accelerationists, that's another one that's these big groups are forming around, is accelerationists, accelerating the demise of humankind. Scary stuff. Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure.
For your note, this is where I think it gets particularly, maybe just backwards a few minutes, talking about the Harrimans and the connection to the Versailles Treaty. But this is where things really pick up steam, and just read propulsion, energy, science, secrecy, along with the manufacturing angle.
Okay. All right. Let's check it out.
Was to make Germany strong again so that she would become a bulwark against Soviet communism.
Germany was fighting for its life. Certain measures were needed to protect it from its enemies. I cannot say that I am sorry we applied those measures. We were a bulwark against Bolshevism. We were a pillar of Western culture. A bulwark and a pillar the West may yet wish to retain.
It was around this time that the newspapers, which these same rich people owned, made sure the word Bolshi, a truncation of Bolshevik, entered the English language, so that we would associate Bolshevism with aggression. And it was with these subtle and not so subtle methods that the international elite began to shape our destiny for the remainder of the 20th century. The intellectuals of the period were curious. They were incensed, they were depressed, and you get a very good feeling of the political atmosphere of the time from the diaries of the Labour politician Harold Nicholson, when he writes, "We have lost our willpower since our willpower is divided. The people of the governing class think only of their own fortunes, which means hatred of the Reds. Our class interests cut across our national interests, and I go to bed in gloom." With such heavy investment coming into the country, particularly from America and Britain, Germany began to recover very rapidly. And then the new class of international financiers began searching around for a homegrown, authoritarian political movement they could support. What they needed was someone they could count on to be both aggressive and expansionist. Ultra-right-wing causes, which at normal times would have been ignored and marginalized, were suddenly given very careful consideration, until finally the rich elite found a man and an idea which they felt might deliver the political outcome they desired. Adolf Hitler and his fledgling National Socialist Party. At the same time that the world's rich elite began grooming Hitler for his starring role, they also became even more deeply involved in military intelligence. I say even more because the Dulles brothers, Averell Harriman, and the chief of Remington, Samuel Bush, a man referred to as the original Merchant of Death, had a relationship with American military intelligence stretching back into World War I. The lesson here being that the American variant of military intelligence started out with businessmen protecting their investments, just as if they were a mafia. Right from the very beginning, it had nothing to do with national security and everything to do with money. In Hitler, the Illuminati had found a ready-made stooge who could be the face of this autocratic new movement. And when the time came to put together a new secret intelligence service, which was going to help protect all the money they had tied up in the German economy, these men also found one was readily available, the Order of the Skull and Bones at Yale University. Discussion of secret societies is something of a minefield because it so easily invites ridicule. It is very difficult for the general public to accept that the super-rich leaders of their Western world can possibly be as mad and deranged as they actually are. The public, generally speaking, are sensible and level-headed people who have to balance their checkbooks, so they inevitably tend to laugh at stories about Satanists and occult believers. But if you talk to any well-informed historians, they are all aware of the important role which various secret societies have played in human history. The Black Hand always played a pivotal role in the history of the mafia. If you talk to anyone in the UK who was political and read books, they are always aware that the ruling class of Britain, including every member of the royal family, is a Freemason.
Has anything changed since then? I mean, not a damn thing has changed since then.
Yeah, and this is how, like, with this lens now, look at the times, right? Things are a little bit clearer.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Crazy. Where'd FLAK go? Did we lose FLAK? Must have. I'm sure I'll hop back in. All right, we'll keep up with this, but man, it is interesting to see it all kind of laid out. This
Just a little more to paperclip but yeah, It's you're seeing in like Smedley Butler, like I hadn't heard of that, you know. So this is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm digging it for sure. All right, we'll see if we get FLAK back. I'll keep playing this.
With the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt finally realized he had to do something. His response was the Trading with the Enemy Act, which allowed him to seize assets like the Union Bank, through which Bush, Walker, and Harriman had been financing Thiessen. Roosevelt didn't realize, however, that it was already a case of too little, too late. Because without his knowledge, American business moguls had been tumbling over one another for 2 years in their efforts to assist and do business with the Hitler regime. Typical of this American spirit of enterprise was Sosthenes Ben, the president of AT&T, who flew immediately to Berlin when war was declared to put in Hitler's phone lines. He gave the Nazis the most high-tech, state-of-the-art telecommunications system in the world at that time, so that Hitler could rule the European mainland with the maximum efficiency. Rich men have been hiring thugs to do their dirty work, especially to frighten people, since human civilization began. What people have to try to appreciate is that Nazism, in reality, was simply the first time in human history that the rich had enough wealth to hire an entire country of thugs to do their dirty work. Some of the most emotive images in world history are those of the Nazi war machine sweeping across the Low Countries to begin their occupation of France. And people have always assumed that the trucks used for the miles-long troop convoys must have been German trucks. But if anyone at that time had taken the trouble to lift up the cowling and look at the engine, they would have found these were actually Ford trucks, which had been built with personal permission from Henry Ford, who was sitting in his office 4,000 miles away in Dearborn, Michigan, a service for which he was given the Grand Cross of the Eagle, the highest honor the Nazis ever bestowed on a civilian.
Oh, good for him.
Or sued the U.S. Army, the U.S. Government in the 50s, because during the war, the U.S. Air Force bombed their tank-making facilities in Germany. And this is true. And what was it, like 52 or something? They sued the U.S. government for destroying their factories. And they won. They won the lawsuit. I had to write a little song for Henry here. Ford built tanks for the Nazis, and the Nazis used those tanks to gun down lots of soldiers in the U.S. Army ranks. Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist and a nasty one was he. He built tanks for anyone for the proper fee. Henry Ford.
Hitler so admired Henry Ford, he kept a life-size portrait of him on the wall next to his desk, and even his legendary Panzer tanks were tainted by these sorts of practices, because they were made by I.G. Farben, who had entered into a cartel with the Rockefellers' Standard Oil. The government in Washington knew all about this, and largely did nothing. But most shocking of all is the truth of what really happened in the little Polish town of Oświęcim. This sleepy little hamlet just happened to be in an extremely mineral-rich region, particularly for coal, which Western industrialists had wanted to get their hands on for years. With the coming of the Hitler regime and the invasion of Poland, the fascist financiers had the bright idea of turning this conquered region into an investor's paradise by building a Nazi concentration camp near the town and utilizing the slave labor available to drastically reduce their own production costs. Few people are aware of the gigantic scale of the Nazi concentration camp network and are blissfully unaware that the real purpose behind their construction was...
Just pause that right there for a second, folks. And let's think about this. Each one of those black dots was a concentration camp.
Yeah, now if you holograph that, like take a transparency and then lay it over another transparency of like current military bases and start drawing lines. This is where stuff is, it fits in with everything here because it's a larger power structure. And I don't think that anybody has in the UFO, well, there's not like a strong emphasis on the corporate. People act like it's some passive thing that America's in control of or whatever. And this points to, a greater scale. And we can run this forward, but we're almost out to 47 in paper clips. So I'm going to chime in there for that.
Right. Holy shit. That's something.
Well, but the emphasis is that it was for a work operation. And what he'll go on to say is that since we watch this, and if you don't mind, just because like I'll probably check out because I don't want to see some of the things that are in this,
you're good, bud.
Independent interview. But what the impression that I got is that there was an effort to extract with this and just use slave labor in the same way that they've been doing on the cotton fields, in the same way they're doing in the present now, in like factories in China and stuff like that, and like mining operations in Africa.
Oh yeah.
So this is like this is a larger operation, and the methods that they used, like because they like got all the gold out of like people, and like it's just a terrible, terrible process. And there's specific names that are connected to it. But at this point, we kind of have a good handle on the names and networks that are running forward now, right? Like some of those screenshots with like Dulles, Bush, you know what I mean? That's the thing to follow because that becomes the CIA jumping, ahead of this. Those guys are, you know what I mean? This is that. And so the big joke is that like it's funny that like the Nazi lost because like something worse won,
Yeah. Wow.
You gotta just skip. We can skip ahead because it gets pretty rough for the next little bit. Like we kind of know what happened.
Jump ahead a little bit and then.
But personally, you should go back and check it out because it's freshly. It's not just like the same beats that you've already had hit before, but it's like, oh God, when you think about it that way, what they did this way, and I didn't know they did that too. God. So it's worth seeing, and for anybody listening and watching in the future. But
where do you think I should go to, Flag?
This is good, by the way. I might. I'll be able to stick around for a while, just to let you know where my timer is. But I've had a good time, and I didn't expect, to be able to do this. This is very cool. I just want to say, and I appreciate like that you're digging things, and more power to you too.
I love it. This stuff's a blast. Yeah, this is sometimes it's like the knowledge you get from other people who have spent the time doing research on their own is oftentimes better than like what you'll get in a classroom. You'll learn more just from doing stuff like this than you will creating a report on it or something, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like what's really cool, like in the timeline, and cut me off whenever you like. I just wanted to say like just what goes on in this vein, like in the next decade. So from 47, say, but like anyway, 40 to 50 with the science applied is very interesting. But you need to understand like 1880 to 1930 to get why 1940 was what it was, and then that even has a lineage that goes back like traceably, by thousands of hundreds of years through thousands. But going forward, like what happened in this corporate structures, once they had like this new restructuring, this new like seeing it through this lens and the connections globally, and like it becomes very interesting because that goes completely corporate by the time like JFK is assassinated. That's like the flex. And it's the decapitation of like, it's like what they wanted to do with Smedley before World War. They just were like, okay, we'll just give it another presidency that we kind of like, are already in control of, and then we'll whack the one that, is like threatening to break the mold and scatter the CIA to the winds. Why? Because it's connected all this and scattering it to the winds, right? And he was allied with Gorbachev. He's like, dude, you understand what that thing is over there, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to nuclearize and go to war. And do it this way. You know what I mean? And people saw through shit. You know what I mean? Pardon my language.
What a mess, man.
I can't wait till we get to Lucky Luciano, just because it'll like fully tie in everything that I was talking about earlier. Like this is pulling up the receipts for like all the stuff I mentioned, especially Lucky Luciano being CIA.
Yeah, and his boy being drugged by CIA and all kinds of weird shit.
And you can look up the Danny Sheehan clip if you wanted to, with Jesse Michaels, where he talks about this infrastructure. And Jesse Michaels is like, "Oh, that's a really interesting thesis that the CIA was coming from, corporate backed, whatever." He's like, "That's just the case. Like that's what it is. These guys like," and he goes into it, And also, I would recommend there's one video that's called. It's 4 hours. It's the Deep State Architecture by Stephen Greer, and it's one presentation, and it has another part, like piece of the puzzle from like he acknowledges the science side, so he can tell you that like where things were. I deviate personally from some things, but I don't want to get into like those little things. Just watch it for yourself with your own eye and take out what is obviously true of it, like the formation power. You'll see the same thing that's being talked about by Sheehan, that's being talked about by this, that's just on the record, matter of fact. Yeah. And what happens by the time you get to 60, it's this cutoff. And then 60 to 90 is very interesting, because by the time you get to the 90s, you have 51 aerospace corporations collapse to 5 in the Last Supper. And that is a new, so before the 20th century is over, there's like a new growth that is important to track with this lens, because it's transnational. It's not multinational, it's transnational. It's over it all. And and so by 2000, it gets crazy. In 2010, on the science side, it starts to get wild, because the enemy nations, not this thing, is figuring it out too scientifically.
So you think what it is it's reverse engineered craft, some of it?
No, it's not. I don't think that there's craft. I think that there's already proof that we can do the saucer stuff with my thesis is that if we can do it, then we don't need aliens. We didn't discover alien saucers at the same time we invented our saucers. That doesn't make sense in the story. So I disagree with Greer to be explicit that it's all aliens. I'd like there to be, I want there to be, but I see no reason to have them yet in the story, unless they are really just light beings, which I buy, like balls of plasma with consciousness somehow in them manifest or something. Like, orbs that maybe can become stuff. I'll grant that. Of course it could. It could be like the teleport sitter, like looking at the focal point of a point that could immediately collapse into something. And so I'll grant almost any kind of thing like that, because what it is it's a point of like this energy density, right? High energy density. It's not like just whatever's in the circle. It's like orders of magnitude and the Fibonacci scaled down like infinitely to power, basically. So whatever, like all the orbs have their own vibe. That's the music of the spheres. That's plasma oscillation waves working through plasmoids that are exotic vacuum objects, quote, which is connected to all this stuff. And so, yeah, I would grant that like something can teleport from something else in a ball of light. And so you could have saucers from somewhere else. Okay. And like I could work in aliens easily, but we need to understand that like we too can levitate things with vibrations in laboratories by this time. So, and we can do it with nuclear power at this time, and we can do it with fusion power so it does. So right now we need to be, I think what my thing is maximizing what aliens must be capable of, because we're capable of so much more than we're getting credit. We're capable of triangles. We're capable of saucers. We're capable of tic tacs as cavity resonators.
If we can do this stuff, what the fuck are we hiding for? Why are we hiding it? We should be
this control system, this domination by the elite powers control that would upend that.
I was going to say, Nathaniel, you've been hanging out with me too damn long now, because we both come to the same conclusion. That's my thesis as well now. Like, I've been onto this whole tech shit ever since, I've sunk my teeth into the saucer stuff. So like I don't know, man. It's weird. It only points to one thing, you know, and sad because I wanted it to be the other thing.
So
I wanted aliens.
Kind of like just a cover for our own shit. Is how you're feeling.
Well,
yeah, alien gravity. Alien stands for advanced, right? Exotic stands for classified. That's the thing there. It's not reversed from like magically out of nowhere, like us being like steam engines. It's ridiculous. It ignores the history and body of work that is demonstrable in patents, experiments, film, photography, replicable stuff, principles that are key. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a huge discount to keep that stuff under private control. And who's private
Say
there?
to, are you familiar with like the secret space program videos and conferences?
I'm not, because I understand there's also maybe like lots of other stories that are out there. I've been following things that are based on what I've said, and I'll shut up in just like 10 seconds. Is my DNA evidence here like following the money is a DNA thread that we do here? That's the thesis. That's the timeline. I didn't ask to make up anything. I just want to know what money is in time. Where was the biggest, and how did it like go? And then you lay in, okay, what is the DNA evidence of actual replicable, demonstrated, no matter if it's consensus, if it's just real science, what is that? What's been consistent and says the same thing and shows results and like is legitimate that, a lot of people just haven't ever heard of it. So if someone's like, no, it's not possible, I'm like, tell me everybody in Lockheed Martin's name. Okay, then no, we're not going, not everybody, you know what I mean? But like, tell me Boyd Bushman, Charles Chase and Paul Putoff and, the Leak Morabo stuff and like what that was demonstrating, Robert Ford and Frank Mead and Jack Champion and like, that like swirl of stuff. And then Russia's side has, Sakharov and Shishkin and like, all these folks. And then the German side that there was interest already.
Right.
Yeah. So we can, dig into it, but I might be able to, with this lens, think about it fresh. But I bet you he's going to give you some really true propulsion history. That's my hope.
Oh, for sure. Well, so this is just a snippet from the secret space program from McCandlish. I thought was really interesting. You might have heard the story before, but still, I think it's really interesting hearing it.
He enjoyed the air show, and he said, well, I think I saw some things I wasn't supposed to see. And I said, well, how can that be possible? Anything that you have on display in the air show would be there for the public. It would be cleared ahead of time. He says, well, this wasn't exactly a public show that I went to. And I said, well, what are you talking about? Well, it turns out over the next few years, I began to get the details of what had happened. But right about the time the Thunderbirds flying demonstration team was beginning to do their exhibit, the gentleman that my friend was with said, let's go over here. So they go into a hangar, and there's a group of other people there, including some well-known congressmen. Senator Alan Cranston was allegedly there. Congressman George E. Brown, who was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology, was there. And a lot of high-ranking military brass. They all boarded a military passenger jet, a 727, and were flown up to Palmdale, to Air Force Plant 42, where you find Lockheed Skunk Works located. This is the building that was actually used for the construction of the L-1011 airliner when it was in production, and is now the home of the Skunk Works. Now, here's another angle on the same building. You can see how massive these hangar doors are. Now, as they were going into the hangar, the gentleman turns to my friend and says, he just realized that there are some aircraft on exhibit here that you're not cleared for, to security-wise. You are not cleared to see these aircraft. So just enjoy the show, walk around, listen, take a look, but don't say anything to anybody. So he goes in. I don't know how well you can see this because it came out kind of light, but there were two pieces, or two sections to this particular hangar on the inside. On the southern side, which would be over here, They had a number of aircraft, including the first generation Aurora, which I'll go into a little bit more here in a bit. They had the F-117A stealth fighter. They had the losing competitor in the B-2 advanced technology bomber competition, which led to the creation of the Flying Wing Northrop B-2 bomber, the Spirit. Also had a couple of odd little hovercraft. Oh, I'm sorry, right here. This particular vehicle here, this is kind of a close-up, a rough close-up. It was a sort of an answer to or a follow-up to the A-10 Warthog, which was an anti-armor aircraft. It's a vehicle that carries a very big Gatling gun, fires thousands of rounds per minute, and has a very durable, very hard aircraft to take out of the sky. It's very well or very heavily armored. Has a big gun that sits inside of it. And so this aircraft here was designed with a very unusual kind of a wing. Now, in aerodynamics, they have something called the Coanda effect. And basically, it involves blowing air across the surface of a wing to provide lift rather than just relying on the movement of the wing going through the air in order to provide that same lift. So what they did, the design of this aircraft was that they came up with a way for mounting the engines above and slightly ahead of the wing. And then they took these high temperature alloy, it's like a flattened out funnel shape really, that blows right over the wing. And when the wings are all rotated in sequence, it forms a nice smooth ramp that the air can actually flow down. It goes from horizontal, following the surface of the wing with this Coanda effect, kind of a aerodynamic adhesion in a way. And so it redirects the thrust of the engine to a point where it's pointing almost straight down, right about where the center of gravity is for the aircraft. Now here's a computer-generated image that shows a little bit more detail of the same vehicle. The hovercraft were kind of unusual. There was one that had a jet engine that was in the tail of it, kind of a teardrop shape. And then around the perimeter,
you can pause it
had
here
a
for a sec.
series of little trap doors that would open and close as the thing was flying along. And this jet engine also had a transmission that connected up to a set of counter-rotating turbine blades that surrounded what amounted.
I could if I could find the right button.
Awesome. All right. So remember I mentioned the Coanda effect earlier, and it was also, I have like loads and loads of images of these craft that he's talking about. I found all these, and I put a bunch of them already on my page. But the Coanda effect's really cool, especially when you put it into a like a disc formation. You know what I mean? You get way better thrust vectoring with that. And two, after this, maybe you want to look at the Searle effect, because I believe John Searle himself is in a couple of videos showing it off. But it's like a combination of the two.
That's a
but yeah.
that the Russians, so like kind of how the Americans are stuck on the anti-gravity or gravitic propulsion or whatever. The Searle effect seems to be kind of what the Russian advanced propulsion is interested in.
Yeah, well, you'll see that that there's with this. So far, I agree with this. I'm not sure what more is being said by this guy, but so far this tracks. A couple of things are interesting. Skoda Works preceded Skunk Works, and you might imagine that there's a connection there. Again, like a paperclip, and just a little nod. It was the secret German thing there. But then the aircraft propulsion, this is getting, that probably represents kind of like the evolution of man timeline, like one spectrum of it that was further along advanced. With that one image where they were showing the funnel and how he said that it would point basically directly under it.
Yeah.
If you look at that, you could imagine that geometry of like the curve and then like the swoop, and it kind of points down like a C or whatever, or like a C with a curl tail or something, because that would be the downward vector. If you had another one of those and put those two C's together, well, then you would have something interesting, because they would both form at a common down center, but that would be unstable. That would be a two-order structure. What would be interesting, though, is if you added another two-order structure, essentially a cross, or these basic hydrodynamic structures of arrangement that if you get, 4 things going like this, it's a new form of stability. However, 3 is also a form of stability. So that's why you're going to see things in, this like the Mark McCandlish thing, his segmented craft is in 48 segments, right? I think that proves something that would be 4 12s, which have in that scenario another 4 nested in that with a basic 3 architecture as well. Because again, if you take, obviously you can just do math in your head and see the 4s and the 3s connecting in the 48. But then if you take the 4 and the 8, put those 2 together, that's 12. But then if you take the 1 and the 2, this is called root addition, then you get 3 again, and it goes back to the structure. So a lot of these craft are using some advanced things that were figured out with toroidal fields, and the 4-cross geometry as toroidal arrangement. Just like the 2 crosses like a smoke ring. If you had 2 of those ramjets, you would have basically a smoke ring structure. 1, you would have, just like a vortex, basically, and you're riding the 1 vortex. But you can have multiple vortexes together.
Figured it out a while ago.
Well, yeah, we saw what's his name doing that same test on the what's it called, that little flying saucer. Remember earlier when we were looking at Rene Couzinet's stuff?
Yes. Yep.
And I pointed that out. This is the same idea, and that's why I was saying he's using the Coanda effect along with the centrifugal, I guess, opposing rotating disc, kind of like turbine thing. There was another version where it was 3 turbine engines set up in a triangle fashion that would then spin.
Bingo.
But that thing was fucking too wild. So man,
you could never get me in the cockpit of one of those things. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's where Buzz Aldrin started out, bro. He was a test pilot, man, for like all the NASA test fucking high altitude shit.
I'll be Aldrin's assistant or something.
Yep, water boy. I'll be a water boy. Come in once you land. I got 2 bottles right on my hips. Bang, bang, water boy.
Well, let's let McCandlish finish here. There's some cool shit, like the designs and crafts, and like he's not the only person that's told this story. Like this story has been confirmed by other people, and so I do not think this is bullshit. I really don't.
Part of their intelligence briefing newspaper. And this was apparently an artist's rendition of what they were brought into an area where there were 3 flying saucers hovering off the floor, no landing gear underneath, basically just floating. And there was the smallest of the 3 vehicles it had a rolling staircase in front of it. You could climb up, you could look inside, see the components. They had a videotape playing on a TV next to it that showed one actually flying around doing various things. They had a podium with a 3-star general that got up and described the capabilities of this vehicle and 2 other larger versions of it that were behind it, much larger. You can tell by the size of the door going inside. The synthetic vision system, which involved a number of cameras on the outside. This is the 60-foot version here. This one here was somewhere between 150 and 120 feet in diameter at the bottom, right down there. So one of the things that tells you is that whatever the technology is that's running this thing, whatever makes it work, is scalable. That is to say, you can make a little one or a big one, but without too many different adjustments in the technology, you can actually make this thing work the same way on a small scale as it will on a large scale. Now, ultimately, I wound up producing a cutaway illustration that was based on a military passenger jet, a 7 and then the turbine blades. They were involved a number of cameras, one or a big one, but and he was very.
Okay, I was trying to pause it here. I accidentally hit rewind. You all have probably seen this image before, right?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the geometry that I meant.
Yeah.
If I didn't realize this was Mark McCandlish speaking, but I'm very familiar with this craft. It's if you look at it, there's the 48 segments, there's the 3 seats which fit in the geometry, and if you were to go back to that image, you'd notice that the rivets were in two in a 4 arrangement. So it was 2 across from 2, and then there's 2 more across, and that's the rosy cross. That's a hydrodynamic stability thing. That's something that just allows for control. A basic counter rotation, and on top of a rotation is tornadoes. It's simple smoke rings and stuff. But whenever you get 4 of those structures, then you can control in a kind of like a 4-dimensional all around the bubble, so to speak. And that's allowing this field generated underneath to be pointable.
So crazy. You know, it's just like they say, engineers in the tech field will say, you know, when you see a technological breakthrough for the first time, it will seem like magic. And, you know, maybe that's what we're experiencing. Who knows?
Well, and
About
you know, this
what do you
what the
see?
Party said. Oh, go ahead. But it goes forward. So like this principle, like can be applied to the future for revolutionary technologies. I know we talk about a lot of dark stuff that's happened, and it seems like fatalistic, but there's actually a lot that can be done, like tabletop energy for your home without like a power grid or waste. You know what I'm saying? Like amazing technologies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's hope. Let's hope some good stuff comes out of it. Because, yikes. It's been a long road. Okay, here we go.
And he's very specific. I mean, this is a young man who's an outstanding designer. He has the ability to kind of look at things and remember what he's seen, almost like a photographic memory. And so he was able to rattle off the dimensions of all the different components in the system. He described a capacitor array in the bottom that had stacks of 8 individual copper-colored plates, and they had you know, a series that went all the way around this vehicle, that there were so many inches wide, something like 12 to 14 inches wide at the outer edge, that they were embedded in a kind of a glass-like substance, you know, maybe a quartz or some kind of a high dielectric resin of some kind. There was a little robotic arm that could extend out through doors that would open on the side. There were oxygen tanks, but everything, the thing that was really interesting about the vehicle was that everything on the vehicle was made of synthetic material. There was really very little metal used in the construction of this vehicle. The sides were made of a composite material, something like carbon or Kevlar. The entire crew compartment was a big sphere, and this sphere was what you would call a pultruded component. Pultrusion is a process where you take a shape, in this case, a sphere. I must hit that button again, huh? There we go. Here's a little bit better diagram. You can actually see a little bit of the texture. This was a computer-generated illustration. It was done by my friend, the late James Allen, who also produced the film about some of the research I did into this. And the pultrusion process is the one in which you have a kind of a mandrel, a shape that you want to turn into a composite vessel for storing high-pressure gases, or being allowed to an object that'll go into an environment where there's a lot of high pressure. And so what they do is they have a strand of or a number of strands of these composite materials, and the strand is wrapped around this mandrel as it's being tilted and rotated on like a spindle. And it's impregnated with resin as the fibers are being wrapped around it so that they all stick to one another. It's pulled tightly, pultrusion. And so in the end, you have a structure that is extremely strong. And in fact, the little oxygen tanks that are down here in the bottom were also pultruded vessels, and you can find images of those just about anywhere online.
I didn't know if that actually worked out.
Yeah, it works.
I never seen one play.
Yeah, that stuff works, dude. That should. We have reports that it goes at least 3 feet off the ground. You want to know what bugs me a little bit? That looks a whole lot like 2 things that I know. One of those 2 things being the emergency system for the astronauts. Like, let's say there's something wrong and they need to get out, and they go down that chute and they go into that like emergency little bunker underneath the launch pad. It looks like the circular thing under there, and it also looks like the circular cap at the top of the top of the rocket. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Challenger little module that pops off.
Yeah, that last one he was showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
yeah.
the secret space program conference, I think they had 2 of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's interesting is in this timeline by like 52, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, things were fairly open. People were bragging about the developments they made and that they were about to crack in 5 years. That would have been by 1960. Electrogravitics and public Chapel Hill conferences, 1952. Da 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 da. Breakthroughs are happening following Townsend Brown, and then it goes dark.
Yeah, no, the guys Weinstein talks about the 2 rich guys that were probably CIA, right? That kind of probably not kidnapped, but made offers folks couldn't refuse to come develop under the government and no one else.
Yeah, it's a completely private track. It gets funneled in so that by 1960, everything, universities, corporations, federal funding, are all going right to this funneling up first.
Have as big of balls as Amy Eskridge had, they ruin you. If you stand up
Oh yeah, I mean, there's
and you say, no, I'm going to figure this out on my own, they fucking ruin you.
Yeah, and Pons and Fleischmann in the 1990s, they cracked and had replicated hundreds of times by other people across the world. Tabletop, easy fusion, easy energy, more energy out than in. Not free, but I'll be damned, you'll never pay for it, except with some electrodes. And that got dark within 3 years and, ended up crumbling their working lives.
And this is, and the thing that's so frustrating, it's like, not only is this supposed to be a free country, it's supposed to be a capitalistic, culture, and that's what fuels our GDP. But like, all that keeps happening every single year is more goes to the top and less goes to the middle and the bottom. And at some point, that's going to be a big problem. Maybe that's when they'll finally start admitting they have this technology. Who knows?
I think we're in that now. I mean, we're in the point where it's a big problem, been there, and things are shaking out at present. And it's all wobbly, and it's hard to see like which way it might go.
Yeah, I think all Americans are feeling great. You're buying $8 eggs and $6 gallons of milk. Going, what the fuck is going on? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean and in Europe too. I mean, it's spread across to England. England's feeling it right now. Germany's prices, Italy's, France. I mean, they're out on the farmers are out on the street, with their tractors.
They're still blaming COVID.
Yeah, and the Canadian truckers, also like had economic, concerns. And the thing is, they don't want people to talk about the economics of it. It's that they were racist. It's that they had a political thing. It's not a cohesive working class problem. It's not people who work.
Yep, absolutely, bro.
Well, think of this too, like, because he's talking about like dielectric resins and things like that. We've been doing shit like that since before the 20s, like 1920s. That's not a new technology; it's hidden technology. Relatively easy to do it as well.
Well, yeah, and it's a key principle with fusion is a dielectric because you have you have an anode and a cathode, and one's bigger than the other, and they're on either side of the dielectric. And whenever that dielectric gets pumped enough, it has a charge thing, and if you channel that charge, you could have a pulse, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yep.
The stuff that should be easy isn't. Right? They make the stuff that is free and can provide a better outcome for yourself, your family, your neighbors, and all that, they make harder for you to attain. But the shit that ruins the environment, stuff like that, no problem. It's pretty crazy. And we have solar panels on their roof.
No.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind it. I feel like we're finally working to a point where they actually make a little bit of sense to use, but there's still better options, you know.
That's what I mean. Like if you look at the cost and the maintenance and what they actually produce, it's garbage, dude.
Oh, it's a no-go. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is that it's a stand-in. It's one of those drip disclosure things that also take a lot of oil to make, don't they? That also take,
Yeah.
and there's other things like if you want to look up something short and hopeful, check out ENG8 Energy Company. They're one of several doing like independent. We're doing fusion. We're doing fusion commercially. We're be damned. And they've got some cool stuff because very often the stuff just gets, but now it's bubbling. It's bubbling up. And the hope is that, and it's not just enough hope. Trying to advocate for this and let people understand that the science is real and that you could like heal yourself, feed yourself, warm yourself, and like just have a better world with the access to this stuff. And it's all based around fire. It's like not like weird magic. It's like universal stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's hopefully coming sooner than later, man. This is a good space though. What geez, where do we go here? Like 7 hours. Almost 8 hours in space.
Okay.
Murdered it. Hope everybody had fun watching it. My butt hurts, so I gotta get up. But yeah, man, thank you everybody for showing up, hanging out, listening to us talk and brainstorm over some of this craziness that's going on. We're going to have some pretty fun projects going on that's going to include Eric Hecker and Deciphering TV, so stay tuned for that. And we are just happy you checked us out. Nathaniel Flack, thanks for hanging out. Y'all have a good night.
Peace. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Later on.